And here we are, live, and welcome back to another Blether. No intro this morning. Technical this morning. My God, how long a day has it been? no intro today. Technical issues with that, but good evening, everybody. Welcome along to another Blether with, and tonight we have got the fantastic David Stirk back in for round 2 or episode 2 of a Whisky Blether. Great to have him on. I'm sure you guys are looking forward to it as well. Louise, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Excellent. It's been a busy week at IWS HQ. It's been pretty mental. So it's going to be good to crack open some drams and chill out and just talk nonsense. I feel like I've done nothing but talk all week, as well as lug about tables and chairs and paint and just make coffee and stuff. But
you're not for Thursday night.
Saved it all for Thursday night. Yeah, I haven't even had a drink this week, I don't think. And that is, yeah, I don't think so. Not in a non-professional capacity, anyway. How was your week been?
I'm busy. You've had me in the shop every day.
Cool. Yeah, I guess.
I usually have days off, but I've not had one this week. No, that's not true. That's not fair. I have had a day off this week. But
yeah. So good evening, everyone at home. You will have noticed that Kat has missed us again. That's a hat trick of weeks without Kat, which is terrible. Louise, you're pretty much going to be the next Blether host if this keeps up.
I am getting too comfortable. I fear Kat may not be welcome back.
It's great to have you in. And the more comfortable you get, the more scared I am that it's going to be you and Kat in this, and I'm going to be out of the role. But yeah, Kat is a cat trick of weeks. Yeah, Callum, nice. I like it. Love a pun. And even before I became a dad, I loved the puns. Rick Johnson, good evening. He's in from San Francisco. He's Mike and Louise. This should be a lot of fun. Don't forget, David's going to be here as well. Rick, David is joining us. But no, Glengarry are on an awards evening. They are up for Northeast of Scotland Food and Drink Awards. So she is representing them. I'm not sure what category they're in. It'll likely be visitor experience or distilled product. Those are the 2 categories, I think. Or it might be the sustainability award. That's the 3 kind of things that they might be all 3. I don't know. We'll find out. I'll keep an eye on the socials and see what is happening there. So that's why Kat is unable to make it this week. She does promise she'll be back next week. But it's up to you and me, Louise, to keep the guys at home entertained and talking whiskey. Maybe a little bit of history, maybe a little bit of nonsense. We'll see how it goes. Before I get on our guest, what's in your glass tonight?
Tonight, I was feeling very Pioneer and Spirits-esque. Wonder why. So I went for a little Clydeside Stop Cross. I think it's their first batch or their first release. Yeah.
Love it.
I do love Clydeside.
Well, I am on my last bottle of the wee Brown Electric Coup, which is the Campbelltown blend that David, Mark Watt, who was on as a guest a couple of weeks ago, and Andrew Smith collaborated on. Did a bit of a cask or a blend share as well. And I think it was last year's Malt Festival this was launched at. So I'm eking it out. Lovely whiskey. So a blend of, I like how the blend of all the current Campbelltown distilleries, just to save in any ambiguity. So that's why I'm on a 7-year-old at cask. I think it was cask shed, was it? Yeah, 58.8%. The kicker. So yeah, I'm going to enjoy that, and then I'm going to go to one of my favorite whiskies of last year. From David, which some of the guys at home will have heard me raving about quite often. And tonight gives me the chance to do that all over again. So I'm going to look forward to that. Without further ado, you're not here to listen to us guys. You are here to listen to us talking to David. So let's bring him in. There we go. I always love it when that click just works. And there's no pause, there's no delay or anything. You just come in straight off the bat. Straight off the golf course by the sound of it.
I should have exited, so you just had an empty chair.
Oh my God. I just had an image of a green screen there.
Yeah.
You're there, but you're not there. I think we did that in the last Blether, so we won't do it this time. Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, all good.
Excellent. Have you recovered from all the festivals?
Yeah, pretty much. I caught a horrible flu from Speyside and then recovered just in time for Campbelltown. Wasn't quite myself, but got down there no problem. Yeah, all good. I didn't do Isla. That would have been a bit much.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense month, isn't it? May for the
yes, it's the regional festival month. It is. Yeah, you need a titanium liver to be able to do all three festivals. That was enough for me.
Yeah, we were talking to Mark a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was Callum said if you're fit for the Isla Festival, you haven't done Campbelltown right.
Definitely. Yeah, there was a fair bit of booze at Campbelltown. It was the weather helped. The weather made it this year.
Yeah.
It's so nice. The Courtyard Day was absolutely superb. Both days, Glen Scotia and Springbank. I wasn't there for Kilkerran, but absolutely made it. The vibe was just fantastic. Just the nicest people.
I think the only day that got rain was Mark's Indie Festival.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Although I think it wasn't too bad from the pictures. They went outside anyway. I think, and then later on they had to go in the hall. But
yeah. No, great stuff. We've got quite a lot of people saying hello. We've got Rick, San Francisco, who said hello to you. Rob Smith is saying hello. Peterhead Frank, it was great to have you in the shop today. Love to see you again in person. Hopefully you got into Aberdeen safe. Callum, Jeremy, Scott, and Dave, good evening to all. And Dutch Jura, I think that's everyone who's commented. Alistair Gray just popped in as well. So good evening to you guys, and good evening to everyone else who's watching as well. If you can let us know your questions, fire through any drams that you're having tonight. I noticed Dave is on the Tinefanta because he's on call. But Ali has already commented saying he thoroughly recommends the tour, the Whiskyopolis tour. So he was on there with you earlier in the month. So
yeah, the walking tour, yeah.
The walking tour, yeah, I think it was. And Callum is saying last time we saw David, he was wandering the streets of Campbelltown. I really should have read this before I started. Wandering the streets of Campbelltown before taking a weird path and talking in a very loud voice. Yes, he was. You were conducting one of the festival tours.
Arguing with him over whether Dalintoba moved.
Oh, right. Was that what a distillery moved?
It could well have done. There's no. I have nothing to refute Callum's claim, and it's on a map, so he has more evidence than I have. But I didn't put anything about it in the book, so there's nothing. It's neither here nor there if it moved, but it is an interesting idea that it did move. So well done, Callum, for pointing that out.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where you need to prove it didn't happen rather than proving it did.
Yeah, and funny enough, you could say that was the premise of the book, because everybody has had an idea. You know, I kind of joke about every single whiskey book that's been written says Campbelltown Distillery had insert number of distilleries, and then they closed due to insert reason. And they're either wrong or they're part of the reason. So it was, very, very much a case of, right, I've got an idea, but if you haven't got any evidence behind it, or I found some evidence, what does it lead to? That kind of thing. But it would have been interesting to have found something that said that Dalintoba was moved, because that was they moved. They've moved a few times. Different distilleries moved. Argyll moved. Thistle moved. But Dalintoba would have been an interesting one. So, and you got to be careful, Callum, because he knows his stuff. So you know,
yeah,
he couldn't get away with making anything up. He'd know.
But this is the book that you. I like it because I think I've got 4 of your books here actually, and that's a little bit of a coincidence. I took this one obviously because it's your latest one, but I noticed that I've got the other 3. But your subtitle for the first one, I think, the Distilleries of Campbelltown, was The Rise and Fall of Campbelltown. This one's The Rise, Fall, and Resurgence.
Yeah.
Which we are seeing at the moment. It's becoming not quite. Yeah, I mean, obviously the guys who are there, the Springbanks and the Glen are doing phenomenal. But we're seeing another 4 distilleries at least, or
I don't know actually. Obviously, there's 2 with full planning. Then there's Dalriata, and then I think there is murmurings of a 4th. But I didn't even need to talk about those because the resurgence has been because of Loch Lomond and Jane A. Mitchell. The Campbelltown Malts Festival, just the whole vibe of the place is them, and everything else has come because of that. If you think about Fife, that's the opposite. Fife has become a whiskey destination because of the new distilleries, but it's the opposite in Campbelltown. The new distilleries are going because of the vibe of the other guys.
Yeah, I guess I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I think because Fife must be the fastest growing, certainly Lowlands, in the last 5-10 years maybe. It's really exploding, I guess.
Well, last millennium 0. This millennium 6, is it? 5, 6, whatever.
And that's just the ones that are open, isn't it? We've got the ones that aren't quite there yet. Clythe and Aberargie and the likes of haven't got the whiskey out. Is that based on, or do you think that's because of the transport links, the room to grow as well? There's certainly a lot of space for new distilleries in Fife, whereas Speyside and Islay are kind of chocker.
Yeah, I think Duff Mill obviously put it on the map. And then you had ones that were location driven, Lindoras and Kingsbarns. Inchderny, that was Ian, and that was finding the right site. So that just fit his bill. Kythe again, finding so a lot of it. I think you're right. It obviously it's a barley grown region. It's one of the best in Scotland. All the way up to Montrose. All that area is the best and has always been where the best barley comes from. So why not stick a distillery as close to source as possible? It's a wonder that it wasn't a bigger region before.
I always thought that, on the east, it's not really a whiskey desert, right from Aberdeen south, where we know the barley is great, but why did it move inland? Why did it go into Speyside rather than stay, because we had the transports with the harbours. We had, it's always kind of intrigued me why that didn't go. Yeah,
that's a good question. Funny enough, I'm not intending to write another book, but I think the book of Speyside should be written. Why Speyside? Why did it steal the blender's heart? Why did it become the conglomeration of all the distilleries? It's not the most accessible, as you say. Surely on the coast is best because you've got boats. Whenever they were moving stock from Speyside to the warehousing, usually by boat. So you want to be as close to the coast as possible. Yeah, that's an interesting book. Maybe Alan Winchester should write that. He should write his first book on Speyside.
Well, we'll get him on and we'll ask him.
Oh, he's brilliant. Do get Alan on. He's absolutely brilliant.
I mean, we can't even. You go back to the Glenlivet and the visit. Was it King James IV came up to Scotland and Edinburgh about the 1820s, and there was a big Glenlivet thing. Yeah, I wonder if that had something to do. But there were so many distilleries in Speyside by that time, anyway. So well,
it's ideal for illicit distilling. So
yeah.
Well, Alan knows all about that. They go out and discover all these bothies and things, and he'd be a great guy if you can get him on. He'd be a great guy. Well, he's got to start promoting Cabrac, so he needs to get on. And
we had him on with Jonathan at the Cabrac Trust about.
All right.
Well, Russell was on with us, so that's two years ago anyway, and they were just starting. The real ball was rolling at that point, so we've always been trying to get them on to promote it again. Now that it's open, now that the spirit still is running, they filled their 100 cask at the weekend, I believe. But Louise might know more about this because Louise's partner is Ewan Christie, the distiller there.
Ah, well, I know Ewan. I didn't know that was your partner.
Yeah. The whiskey legend himself.
Yes.
He is watching, so I am purposefully now trying to embarrass him. He's just so cool. He's so clever. Yeah.
Yeah, he was up at he was at Dufton for the what do they call it? The little festival in the Mortlock Hall or whatever it's called. So
yeah, aye.
Yeah.
And then he's coming to do a barrel top at the shop on Saturday, actually.
Oh wow.
It's fun. So I'm gonna get paid to hang out with my boyfriend all day. Thanks, Mike.
Here's the tasting room, remember.
Get Charlie to do it.
When you get married, you'll want a day off. You'll get paid to take a time out. Your wife's not round the corner, is she, Mike? Are you okay?
No, I think she's still trying to settle Killian now, so I can hear him whimpering away. Yeah.
Oh, well.
But so Gary Dunsire of the East City Whisky Club is saying that the railways changed the whole whisky landscape, which, yeah, I guess that's got something to do with it. But did it make Speyside more accessible? I guess it probably did, actually.
Well, it's funny that there was a historian called Duncan Colville who wrote this paper 100 years ago about why Campbelltown was such a great place for whiskey, and he said the transport links were one of the reasons. And remember, he's writing at the height of Victorian trains, and you're thinking there's almost not a worse region in Scotland for transport links than Campbelltown. You can go on and on and on about the harbour all you want, but it used to take an age to get round and up and past Arran and everything. So I think you can justify these things any way you want. The idea that Speyside is that it came to prominence because of the train, well, that has to be a regional thing. Otherwise, every single distillery would be between Edinburgh and Glasgow. It would just make sense because that's your central belt. You only need one train between each. Off you go. You got the ports at either side in Leith and Greenock or Glasgow or whatever. So we wouldn't have Highland Park. We wouldn't have Scapa. We wouldn't have Arran. We wouldn't have Talisker. All these places. You just dump them in the middle of this central belt. So I'm very much an advocate of regionality, of location, which is why I wrote the second book, but also why I'm fascinated by Campbelltown as well. And I've got a bit in it. Why is Campbelltown whiskey? And the real answer to that is nobody knows. And I'm really happy that nobody knows. It's that's the best thing. If we start slaying the golden goose, then we get to the Rosal situation where we can have one distillery making all the stars.
Very
and
true.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah. And again, it'll be interesting to see what these new distilleries, your Dalriata and Macquarie and Witchburn and that come up with in terms of a style. Whether they're how close can they get to being Campbelltown, but still be unique and still be their own style. Yeah,
it's quite a lot of pressure, isn't it, when you think about it? It's
it'll be interesting. I mean, Kilkerran's managed, although they've also got the really close link to Springbank, but they've managed to make themselves their own. So
yes,
it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
And maybe that's what they have to do. They just have to make it their own. Say we're not. You don't think we're Springbank Mark II. We are whatever we are. Because Glen Scotia is not Springbank Mark II, and it is not Kilkerran Mark II, and neither are they. They are very, very different, and I think that's what they'll have to do. I know Witchburn will definitely do that. They'll just make what they want to make. They're not aiming to be, funk driven or whatever people want to call it.
We kind of had that discussion last week about Witchburn in that it's actively setting itself up as a distillery to sell to blenders rather than a single malt, which is it's such a kind of left field take on current trend, because every other distillery is opened in the last, probably since Cohoman has said single malt and we're keeping it all for ourselves, and then these guys come along and say, well, that's what the Dalmunich it would be
an inch journey,
but
it is. It's all to do with size, of course. How much do you want to make? If you're going to make 2 million litres a year, very best of luck if you're going to sell that all as single malt. Absolute very best of luck. You're living in cuckoo land. If you're going to make 350,000 litres a year, you're probably going to be okay. That's fine. It's a lot to do with size. So
Yeah.
different. They can tinker. They're still what they've set up. They'll be able to make all sorts of different spirits. So
yeah,
we'll see what they do.
I've got to read this one out from Callum Renton. Whiskyopolis is a fantastic addition to the tome of Campbelltown whiskey books and very well worth buying. So there's
Thank
a
you,
week
Callum.
not from us.
Yeah, get it from Inverurie, please. Don't get it from Amazon.
Absolutely, 100%. It's
I don't mind Waterstone quite so much, but get it from Mike.
Excellent. Who else is on? Russell Brand is on. Russell
Brown, is it? Jeez.
Yeah. Right.
He must have read some of my posts.
He did. He's on. Russell Brinklow is watching.
Oh, Russell, yes.
He said hello and a good evening to you.
I'm sure he loves being called Russell Brand.
I know. They've got the hair for it.
Maybe Russell's found God recently too. Who knows?
Mark Watt, good evening to you. You're on. He's saying good evening. Another Campbelltown legend, and also Craig Buchan, who is part of Team Cabrick. I'm not sure if he jumped on in time to hear us lauding what you've got going on there at Cabrick.
Too late for that plug. Yeah, too late.
Absolutely. And Adrian Hoos from Claxton's is on watching on Facebook. Good evening, Adrian.
Probably just over there.
All right, give him a wave. Well, I looked for this when he was on and I couldn't find it, but I've got it now. And this is going to be my second dram. This is your port cask Fenrinus that we had at the tasting beginning of last year.
Yeah, absolute belter.
It's so good. And when I was really panicking because I looked for this for when Adrian was on, because we did have a talk about the bottle shape and size and things, and I couldn't find it, and I was absolutely distraught that I'd mislaid it or lost it or drank it without realizing. But no, I found it in the back of the shelf today, and delighted to be able to open that again tonight.
Yeah, it's good stuff. That sold out very quickly.
I had a question coming to me. What do you think another Campbelltown heyday would look like? Are we already in it, or is it?
I think we're in it. Yeah, I think having lived there 20 years ago, when it was definitely not in a heyday, it was in a slump. It was in a real rut. And then coming back to it 20 years later, although I've been back since, but coming back, if you take that time period, I moved there January 2004, roll on 21 years, really, 20 and a half years. The change is phenomenal. I kind of say in the book that it wasn't that the place had a lack of pride. It was just that the people kind of were saying, be patient, wait and see. And it's really come to fruition. I never felt when I lived there that people kind of said, oh, I come from Campbelltown. There was none of that. But they sort of felt a little bit helpless against the tide of closures and of lost business and lost jobs and emigration. Really, the school down there has always been excellent, but the young folk would just leave. There was no reason for them to stay. Even when investors came in with the wind power stuff, the jobs were so scant. It was maybe 20 jobs for a town of 4,500, 5,000 people. It's so different now. When I worked for J&M Mitchell, it was 47 employees. There are 140 now or something, or 120 now, whatever it is. I can't remember the exact number. It's an incredible change. And they're well-paid jobs, and they're looked after, and they're cared about, and it's a team, and everybody's branded. And Glen Scotia went from 1 employee to, is it 11 now or something? And again, they've got tours and the distillery managers there, and they've got brands, and you could talk to them, and again, they're proud of what they do and what they produce. I think we are in the heyday, and I'm not convinced we will quite get the next generation of malt nerds and geeks like we do at the moment. I think we'll slip that a little bit. We might get the drinkers, but I'm not sure we'll get the people that will just travel for a week and bring every bottle they can and sit out in the sun and share. I think that might just be a little snapshot at the moment. So yeah, I think we're in the heyday.
Is that like people traveling to Campbelltown as whiskey nerds, or is it like
Yeah.
fostering a bunch of people in Campbelltown to be whiskey nerds?
I think there's travel too. Yeah, you've got a finite number of people down there at the moment anyway. And again, I think they'll try and capture as much of the local talent as they can. There'll always be that I live in a small village here, as Adrian does. We suffer with a fantastic school churning out incredible kids who just go. And 1 in 100 might return, maybe even less, maybe 1 in a couple hundred, because they've gone off and seen big cities, bright lights, opportunities, and things that we can't offer. What tends to happen is when they've got their good job and they've maybe married, had kids, they come back because they want their kids to grow up. And it probably won't be too dissimilar to the places you guys live as well. Campbelltown suffers with that, and it really suffered because there was no reason for anybody to come back. They would disappear and they'd move on and disappear, I should say. That has changed a bit. And chatting to quite a few people now who work for J&A Mitchell and for Glen Scotia, they've come back because of how vibrant the place is. They loved it, and now there's a reason to come back. The traveling mass that we've got, this group of whiskey geeks, nerds, and just aficionados, that's been built up over the last 20 years or so. Are we building up the next 20 years? I don't know. I'm no crystal ball. I just don't feel that we have enough 25 to 35-year-olds coming through. That's making me sound like a real old fart, but my fear is that whiskey is turning back into mum and dad's drink. And I'll be honest, it was dad's drink. You know, when I was a kid, it was dad's drink. Not my dad. He drank wine. But I always joke that when I was a kid, you know, if somebody came with a bottle of whiskey to a party without a 2-liter bottle of Coke, everybody else would look at them like, that guy's trouble. You know, Mad Davy's going to kick off in a minute. We didn't have Buckfast in England. Somebody brought a bottle of Bell's. That was warning signs. So I worry that it might swing back to being viewed that way again. But I don't know. It's a whole different demographic. So yeah,
I think we're seeing more younger people taking an interest, because I think the trend at the moment is to be seen drinking quality rather than drinking for the sake of drinking. We've seen a lot of people move to brands. You know, you've got the craft factor, and kind of spearheaded by they're not craft anymore by any stretch, with Brewdog and the like have kind of made it trendy to drink not just craft beer, but drink for the enjoyment of drinking rather than the 24 tins of the council lager in the park. So I think there was a stat out quite recently. 18 to 24-year-olds at the moment are spending more than they've ever spent on drink, but they're drinking less.
Right. Well, that's good.
Yeah. So they're buying to enjoy. They're buying to be seen to be enjoying, I think, rather
We're clearly paying them too much. That's obviously the job's not stressful enough either. We needed those 18 cans in the park because it was stressful. No, that's rubbish. They live in a much more stressful world. No, that's good. If that is the changing demographic, then I welcome it, definitely.
Yeah. I think I just and the good thing is it's male and female. You know, it's kids across, and people they're interested, and the fact that they get so much information at their fingertips means that they can be interested in something. It's not like festivals or whatever of 20 years ago, pre-internet or whenever that was. Talking about that, in 1994, I read today that remember the widget when it in a can of Guinness, the widget. Yeah,
did it beat the internet as invention of the year?
The internet, yeah. I thought that was great. Yeah, only in Ireland. But yeah, that's where we were back then. 30 years ago now, I guess. But people didn't have that information, and the only way they would get that is by going to a distillery, I suppose. And very few did tours back then. So, but they had no way of finding that information, so they didn't bother. They went and got drunk instead.
Yeah, but the distillery thing is fantastic for the industry, and the change in. I mean, I started in '98 in the industry, and the change is so refreshing. I do wish there was a little bit more reward for the traveler. I don't understand how they missed that opportunity. And I really talked about it in the other book that's between last time I was on, Pioneer and Spirits. They're the best ambassadors this industry will ever have. You people who travel to Scotland for a holiday, they're going to Skye, they're going to the Speyside, they're going to wherever they're going, and then they go, well, what do we do? Well, we'll go to Highland Park, we'll go to Aberfeldy. And I really don't understand why these distilleries don't look at these people and say, right, we need to offer them something that is exceptional and good value. Doesn't have to be cheap, but good value, because they are going to fly back to wherever they're going, doesn't matter, Mexico, Argentina, Canada, whatever, and they're going to just absolutely advocate us, the industry, the distillery, the place, the whole thing. And when I visit a distillery and it has an NAS fill your own for 140, 150 pounds, I just think, what do you do? You're not preaching to the choir. You're not rewarding these people who have traveled so far. And I just don't get it. There are guys who do get it, and we all know who they are. Ian, who was on. Fantastic man, fantastic company. Others, though, just see it as, oh, we've got a captive audience. Let's take them for all that we can get. And I really think that the guys that I are now chums with, and I've known 20 odd years, and they're Dutch and Danish and German, when you ask them how they got into whiskey, so many of them say, well, we were on holiday in Scotland and we popped into X distillery and we had a tour. The people weren't expecting us, and we had a tour and we got to taste blah, blah, and we bought a bottle. And that then creates a lifetime love affair with this thing. And it's not just one distillery, because we never stick to one brand. Yeah. So I'm waffling a bit, but I really wish they would see these people as the ambassadors that they really are, and start rewarding them for their time, trouble, and everything else. And quite often they can only ever take like 1 or 2 bottles with them home anyway. So make sure it's absolute,
make sure it's good.
And 50 quid, 60 quid, whatever it is. Right, I'll get my soapbox now. So.
But
because there's so many, like, I feel like there's a lot of places where people might be trained as staff to think, like, we're the ones that are the ambassadors, so we're the ones that are like doing all the teaching, we've done all the learning, so it's our job to say everything and teach everybody everything. But I'm like, I much prefer that idea that it's the people who are going to be traveling away that are the.
Well, they ultimately are the ambassadors, because they're the ones that are, if you have a bad tour, if you have a bad whatever it is experience, so they're kind of the shop window. But they're the home ambassador. These are the sort of international ambassadors. They're the unpaid ones, and it's an incredible industry because it is one of constant sharing and enrichment with other people. Yeah. Rarely will I ever buy a bottle to think I'll sit at home and drink that. I mean, rarely. Like 1 out of 100, it's to share with the club, or it's to, tell. When Adrian and I, when we travel, we sort of have this unwritten rule: if there's something you see at distillery that's fantastic, we have carte blanche to buy it for each other. And we've had some cracking drams together and stuff from doing that. But there's often times when it's like, well, I was going to buy it for you, it was £195. You're like, well, God, dear me, that's disposable income for a good salary is maybe an entire week or fortnight or something, 200 quid of pure disposable hedonistic income.
Yeah.
But you're right. The people on the shop floor, they are the ambassadors. You have to get that right. And the industry's done a lot better with that.
I think, and quite often these guys who are the tour guides, they're probably the lowest paid member of the staff on the books at the distillery. They're in for a summer. They get minimum training. Here's a script. Read that. They've got no additional input. If you ask a question, it's too technical. They're like, I'll have to find out, or I don't know, because this is what I'm told. Or they're led by a brand story that's what they have to stick by. And too often they're not allowed to. You almost feel like they're not allowed to think for themselves. They have to stick to brand,
or share their personality.
Yeah. And so often these are the only contact that person in the distillery will have with Scotch whisky. And we are now seeing a lot of cruise ships coming into Aberdeen, and these guys coming off the boat, they've got a day, so they don't have time to tour or pander about. They say, right, we're going to a distillery, we're going to a castle, we're going to a stone circle or a beach or something, and that's their day. If that distillery is poor, They're not going to go away from Scotland thinking, wow, that's the best drink in the world. They're going to think, that's a bit naff. It seemed a bit tartan and twee.
But when I did that, I did the 25 of the new distilleries, and the variation in tours was quite remarkable. Obviously, there's a couple in there you can't tour, like Inchderny and Darfmill, and they were fantastic tours because you can't tour them.
Yeah.
But some of them were so long-winded, to the nth degree, and I always booked on the tour. I didn't want to just turn up and get a VIP, experience. And occasionally, I'd say to the other people on the tour, are you following any of this? And then on one of them, I had to say, can you understand the tour guide? Because he had a very broad, I won't say the area, but he had a very broad accent. And he heard me ask. I wasn't trying to be rude or anything. I was joking. I said, can you understand him? Because obviously I've lived here 20 years, so I've got no problem. But I speak a very home county English, which is usually much easier to decipher. And they said, not a word. And we all laughed. And then the tour guide continued it without any change whatsoever. So we were there 2 hours and they didn't understand a word he said. I said, well, he might as well have been speaking Italian. These were Americans, by the way. So English is their first language. You could tailor it. And he went around the room and he said, do you drink whiskey? And they said, well, we don't. We're here for golf. But the dad does. He drinks Jack Daniels. Now, that should already tell the guy who's doing, and it was a fella, doing the tour, tone it down. Don't get into yeast varieties. Don't get into boiling temperatures. Don't get into fermentation times.
Yeah.
Please don't go on and on and on about how different you are to other distilleries. They don't know and they don't care. They are here to play golf, and they were just looking for an hour excursion. And that's when you need, as Louise said, you need that ambassadorial role. And sure, this guy was probably working there 6 weeks a year or whatever, but they were left thinking, I'm never doing that again. That was 2 hours of my life I won't get back. Bored out. There was not a teenage son, but probably a 20-year-old son with him, bored out of their skull. He could have made it a lot more fun. So reading the room a little bit helps.
I see that there's a lot of distilleries now are doing kind of a bar experience so that you don't have to do a tour. You can go visit, try a couple of whiskies. I think that's a great thing as well, because you can talk to the bar staff or who are quite often visitor staff as well. So they've got that. And
he was just caught in a manual. He was caught in his, this is what I do. And it should really have been, look, how long have you guys got? You got an hour? Okay, look, why don't we go through the distillery quickly and we'll spend more time. That's how it should have been. Yeah. It was a very small group. And it's not like I didn't know any of the info.
Yeah, Cardew do a quick, which I think is a great kind of setup. They do a quick tour. I think it's an hour, including your tasting, and they just basically show you each stage. They talk a little bit. This is a mash tun, and this is why it's here. They don't go into volumes or temperatures, and then you're in the tasting room. There's 3 drams, I think, and then you're on your way. And
yeah,
I think more people need to take on that. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Well, I'll never forget George Grant, who from Glenfarclas. I was at a tasting at Whisky and That, Robbie's Drams Festival in Ayr, and it was a phenomenal Glenfarclas tasting, and he had a room full of geeks like me. And he got up and he said, right, I'm going to spend the first half an hour telling you how we make our whiskey. And of course, the room just went, oh, for God's. And he goes, of course, I'm not doing that. You all know how we make whiskey, and we're straight into the whiskey. He read the room. He understood that this it was maybe a £75 tasting back in the day because it was exceptional Glenfarclas. These guys know how Glenfarclas make their whiskey. They've probably toured. They've read the books, And at the end of the day, it is boiling, fermenting, distilling, and then maturing. And the fun bit really is the last bit. How long is it matured? What's it matured in for? Unless you're absolutely into all the other bits and bobs, get to the punchline. That's how it should be.
I was a tour guide in a host of different whiskey places for years, and there is no better feeling than knowing that you've read the room perfectly. Like that, just it's so nice. And like I used to work in places that were very not scripted in the way that you like had to say every single word on every single page that they were giving you, but like you had like 4.5 minutes in one room, you had 6 minutes in the next, and there was always a tour in front or behind you, so it was very like timed. And you always ended up with like 25 versions of a tour based on who was in front of you, and see getting that right, it's just great.
The best tour I've ever had was with Richard Joynson. You remember Lockfine? Well, Lockfine Whisky still exists, but he started Lockfine Whiskies. And when Brewer Clady had their first ever open day, they were just all the tiny staff, and they were far too busy. So they asked Dave Broom, Richard Joynson, and a couple other guys, maybe Charlie and somebody else, to do the tours. And they said, right, what we want you to do is not tell a single fact. Make everything up. I want every tour to be completely made up, rubbish, bullshit, whatever. And Richard Joynson, who was quite a character, I can't remember what he said, but we were in stitches. He was talking about how the fairies were doing this, that, and the other to make sure it tasted this way, and you get this flavor from. And it was brilliant because it was complete and utter rubbish. And that's still the best tour I've ever had. So that's reading the room. That is.
Yeah. Ewan, if you're still watching, next time I'm in the cab rack, I want one of those tours. Absolutely.
Yeah, don't tell me anything that's correct. I want everything to be incorrect.
I've had the factual tour, and I want the fiction tour.
Yeah, the fun tour.
You could do a quiz at the end to see who was actually listening. Yeah,
I put one fact in, and the quiz is which one of the 30 things I said was correct. Your name at the beginning. Ah, damn it, yes.
Brilliant. But, I'm just reading some. So Craig is saying everyone that works at the distillery. So Craig from Cabrick, everyone who works at a distillery, from a distiller to an ambassador is an ambassador. Yeah, 100%. Jeremy Watt, who's watching, saying he stopped buying from quite a few distilleries when visiting, just because of the piss taking of the bring your own, bottle your own prices. I understand why they would charge a bit more for a bottle your own. You're buying that experience. It's something you can only get from a distiller. There's a little bit of that, as long as the whiskey is reasonably priced. The distillery not too far from us went absolutely astronomical with its bottle your own. 700 quid and 400 quid were the two options. One point when I was there, and it's just like, who is going to buy that? But it was selling, and that's the problem. It was selling. And so they kept doing it. Until people
stop buying it. If you're the people buying them, stop buying them. Boycott it until it should be a reward. It really should, because that's the thing you take away to show everybody. It needs to be thought of that way. This is not the travel retail bottle. This is the one they wrap up and they take home.
Yeah.
And I really have rallied against it.
Yeah. For me, the bottle your own it wants to be something you go home and you open and you enjoy it. It's nothing, because that just takes away the whole idea of a bottle your own. Yeah. But we're all getting our soapboxes now. Yeah.
It's when
Why would you get off a soapbox?
Why we do this, so we can rant at the industry.
Absolutely. Well, it's people listen. Fun enough, people do listen, and it's amazing who does. And I was having a conversation the other day with someone about something else, and they said they received a telephone call from some of the industry that I would have put money on them never ringing anybody to bother. And they said, we watch, we listen, we know what's going on. So I get a bit of a reputation at times for being a ranter on Facebook. I don't think I do it that much, but I may be better at wording it than other people. I don't know. But I hope I'm ranting about stuff that means something at the end of the day, because I have no agenda. It doesn't affect me personally. It's not like I'm going to distilleries and going, damn it, I wanted to buy a bottle. Screw you. It's not. I'm not short of a couple bottles or two. So I've got enough for, and that's not including those or those. But anyway, I've got enough. But I support the industry that I love. If I go to an independent shop, I'll buy a bottle of something. Generally, if they've got that's the amazing thing, isn't it? If you go to your shop, Good Spirits, all these great shops, they will have a cask selected for them, and it will be exceptional whiskey at an affordable price. So if a shop can do it, and you're only earning your retail margin, surely the producer who's earning all of the margins can do it in a way, and they've got all the stock. It's not, no one's running out. It's there's always another cask out there. So anyway, that's me and my ranty side.
Yeah, Adrian's has come up with a great point there. Because that's the flip side. It's a little frustrating when you reward people for their loyalty, and then you see the bottles on an auction site 5 minutes later.
Well, that's
there's no getting away from
these guys, isn't it? I feel for them because they do everything right. You can't see it, but obviously it's they do everything right, and and then all their guys get asked all the time, "Oh, everything's going on auction. What can they do about it? What can they do? They write their names in the book. There's nothing. We just have to live with that. It's a sad fact of."
Was it yourself that put on, how to buy a bottle from the cage? Was it either yourself or Callum?
No, it wasn't me. No. Yeah, Callum, you walk in, you buy a bottle.
yeah. Buy a bottle of whatever you can. You take it home and you drink it. Yeah, and that's how it should be. But
I was actually going to open that tonight, but I haven't. I've opened a Glen Scotia. So since Callum's on, Glen Scotia have started doing their own sort of cage thing. This is an Archives 11-year-old, and it is absolutely fantastic. Good luck getting one. One of 24 bottles. That was a small cask.
One of 24. Wow.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how that works. I didn't have time to ask Ian McAllister. Callum might know actually.
Did they drop like a heap of bottles in the hall?
just to make it rare, we bottled all of it and smashed.
Throw a forklift into it and see what was left.
But it's absolutely super. It's actually one of the nicest Glen Scotias I've had. 11 years old. It's got full of Campbelltown funk. Brilliant stuff. Amazing.
We got so excited about welcoming you on, we forgot to ask. Normally, it's one of the first questions we ask you guys. Is
I've already had like 4 glasses of
it. So Russell's kind of brought up the one of our subjects for tonight was the Leith Independent Bottlers Festival, which was phenomenal.
And thank you to Russell for coming, because the amount of compliments I got about the G&M stand was probably maybe 3rd or 4th of all the companies that came. I think Claxton's, and I'm not being biased because Adrian's a pal, but Claxton's were in the lead.
It was always 4 deep at Claxton's.
Such a good-looking guy. You can't, what can you do?
Are we talking Adrian or Russell here?
Both.
The whiskey's not bad either.
Yeah, it was so nice having them there. I think they've already agreed to come next year. What a festival that was. Thanks for coming down as well, Mike, and buying a ticket too. You didn't need to do that, but thank you for that.
No, I like you say, we'll always try and support money. It's nice to be invited, but as soon as I saw that, because I don't often get the chance to get down to festivals because our busiest times are weekends and things. But as soon as that came up, I bought it. And then I thought I'd lost it. I thought, I was digging for ages to find the ticket online. Oh my God.
I have a list of everybody who bought. If you lose your ticket, we have a list of everybody who's bought a ticket. Don't worry. Yeah. And that was the nice thing about the festival. All these ticket sales were coming in, and it's like, yep, I know them. And at one point, we were a little concerned that we weren't going to sell the tickets, because you get that obvious burst, and then it sort of filters through. And one of the organizers who lives in Leith said, should we start advertising locally? I just thought, no, having been involved in festivals where they've done that before, you don't get the crowd in that you want. And we really wanted that festival to be one where no table had to explain who they were, or what an independent bottler was, at least. You had to explain who they were, but not what an independent was. And that was the number one comment we got, that nobody had to start at ground zero. Everybody could say, right, this is a Mortlach, this is a Glenelgin, this is a Linkwood, whatever it was. And half the time people would say, oh, I've got a couple of those, or I've got one of those, or I've tried that. And, so that was a key thing for me, that it wasn't just having the right tables there, it was having the right people. And I think I've got no expertise in this, but we absolutely nailed it. We got the mix of people that was there was fantastic. People were buying bottles. Fragrant Drops, I think, told me they sold something like 50 bottles of whiskey in a day. That's just from one stand. That's incredible. Obviously, it's all to do with Rachel, but.
But and you said, that kind of level of sales. We have, when we have ambassadors in doing a barrel top for 4 hours, a lot of them say they sell more with us than they do at a festival, because so much of that festival is people try to drink as much as they can, or they're not interested in the sales because they just want to sample everything. And so to have that feedback from the guys is great. And let's say you've booked it for next year. Can't wait to do that. But only
March. I think tickets will probably go on sale around September. We have another movie, so we've got the similar setup to this year. We're doing an hour-long movie, and then hopefully, if we can, an hour-long tasting with probably 2 or 3 whiskeys, maybe 4, but probably 2 or 3 with the people in the movie. I can't give any secrets away just in case it doesn't happen. And we have to change what the movie is. But the same guys that filmed the first one are doing the second. Then we'll have a 2-hour break, and then we've got exactly the same 4 till 8 session. So hopefully people can go away, have lunch. We're not going to have a food stall this year. People can go away, have lunch. They've got that 2 hours. We won't need that. We'll bring in food for all the stall holders. But it seemed to just work.
It was so good. But my only regret was I didn't book off the weekend and stay down in Edinburgh.
So that's the change. That's the change. This one coming. Roy and I are doing a deluxe tasting the night before at Portaleaf. And always got an Aquavita V-Pub Barflies thing on the Sunday. So he's got a busy weekend. But we're going to do an Uber sort of 6-7 drams on Portaleaf. So that'll probably limited to about 30 people for that. So Louise, you'll have to come down. Kat didn't invite last year. She can't come now, so you'll have to take her place.
On it.
She can buy a ticket. You get her guest pass.
Exactly. Yeah. All about who you know, Louise.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. God, who's this cat you're talking about? No idea. Because I went down that festival with absolutely no idea of how I was getting home. I think my train was at like 9:15 was the last train. Otherwise, I actually had, I'm not sure who was watching tonight, Willis, who was up at our Whisky Academy a couple of times. He was, you're going to stay at night. He's staying at his daughter's flat, I think. And he was like, I'll never forget this conversation. So wonderful guy. And he said, well, you can stay at my daughter's flat. I'm crashing there for the night. And I was like, oh, that would be great, but I don't have any pajamas or anything with me. And he's like, either do I. And I was, oh, dear God. It was just, great offer, but I think I'm going to chance it. But during the clear up, I was chatting to Chris from Little Brown Dog, and he was driving up once he packed up. So he kindly gave me a lift. So I didn't have the panic, but it did mean that I missed the after sociabilities with guys like Rick, who's watching, and themselves, and Keith and that, who went out afterwards and enjoyed a night out in Leith. It would have been great to be involved in that side of things as well. I was blown away by the people that flew in for that weekend.
Yeah.
A huge contingent from Chicago came, really old friends. And I just can't imagine flying out for a weekend whiskey festival that far, but they did it and they were brilliant and they loved it. So yeah, we'll go live with that one, and hopefully we can keep it's the same venue. We're going to try and use both rooms this time, and the slight changes that we're bringing a few independent distilleries in.
Okay.
There's a reason for that, which will hopefully become evident when we have the film. But we're talking the guys that kind of act like independent bottlers. Your Glasgow's, Ardnamurchan Merkin were there anyway. Your Lockleys, if we can get Darfmill there, all these kind of guys we'll bring along, and a few others sort of handpicked. I was blown away how many independent bottlers I never heard of who wanted to come. One from Ireland that we couldn't get in. So we'll try and get them next year. I mean, how fun would that be to have an Irish independent bottler there? If we can find a way to get the Lost Lantern guys from America over, that would be amazing as well. But logistically, it's very, very. I mean,
they were there, weren't they? They were visiting.
They came. I didn't have a lot of time to talk to them, but to get stock and product there, for everything they pour away, there it's like 4 or 5 times the cost. So that's a hell of an exercise, knowing there's no sales afterwards. So. And I think sometimes people who go to the festivals don't quite understand how much is lost in the pouring process and the stand and everything. So, Anyway, yes, Louise, you'll have to come down with you. Yeah.
I'm there.
Yeah.
It's been ages since I've done a festival because I've always either been working or a broke student. It kind of be my only two options, or work in the actual festival. I'd love to go to a festival as a partaker. So that's my goal now. I'll be at yours next year.
21st of March. We've not clashed with rugby.
Birthday.
Your birthday.
Yes. Does
So
that mean
you'll legally be able to drink then. That's fine.
Oh, you smoothie. You know,
Yeah,
her partner's watching, David.
Didn't go for a realistic age, did I? That's just, yeah. 21 again, Louise. Well done. 21 again.
Gotta be old at that festival.
Hey,
It's your birthday on the 21st.
So.
No, 22nd. But
22nd. Oh, you'll be hungover on your birthday then.
that's all right. I've had worse birthdays.
Well, it's a Saturday. You can't celebrate your birthday on a Sunday. So
That's true. So, do I still have to pay for a ticket if it's my birthday weekend?
that's your birthday present.
Oh, thanks.
VIP access. Behind the scenes stuff.
Amazing. Mike, I'm going to need a
I don't know
holiday
what
on
that
the
means.
21st
That
of
means you
March.
carry in some boxes or something. I don't know what VIP access means. You can eat some of the sandwiches the storeholders get.
Amazing.
Free coffee. Yeah. No, it was a nice vibe. The team we had working there, which and I have to give them a plug because they run the Indie Fest in Newcastle, which is in September. And Carl and his team of John and Steve and Roy and some others that I've forgotten. They are so clued into how to run a festival. They absolutely made sure everybody was happy and on song. And if you get a chance, check out Carl's festival in Newcastle. That was the original independent festival.
Yeah.
And we kind of stole his idea to a certain extent. We stole his idea. There'd never been one in Scotland, which is criminal when you think about it. It's the home of independent bottlers. So I made sure that I got Carl and his guys involved because Carl sort of showed me how you run a festival in a fun and familiar way. And he is really good at it, really, really good at it. So I know he's not watching. He'll be busy doing other stuff. But if you can check out his indie whiskey fest in Newcastle, if you can get down to that, brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I think it's sold out now. It's September, that one, isn't it?
It could be sold out. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Who you know in this world, not what you.
I have to give him a shout. It's my birthday in September, so we'll
okay.
we'll plug that. I'll try and get there. But yeah, and what I think makes a great festival is that people still talk about that. The Leith one. They still are sharing stories of it, and you'll see every so often a dram that they bought it popped up and say, "I got this." Yeah. Maybe they didn't buy it, but they shared it or they swapped it with people who came over, and it's just it epitomized for me what independent bottling, or not even independent bottling, but whiskey is all about. You get the right.
Some of the stuff that they pulled out. I didn't ask anybody. I kind of felt like I was going to write to them and say, "Look, we're doing it," because the idea was a one-off. So, look, this is a one-off. Why don't you just absolutely both cannons going? I didn't need to do that. The guys, they brought the talent, they brought the stuff, they brought the whiskey, and they chatted till they were hoarse, and absolutely fantastic, and almost to a stand. They had exceptional drams, and every 20 minutes somebody was coming up and saying, "Have you tried?" And you think, "I've got to run this," and I stupidly forgot to eat, and then I brought 2 bottles myself, so I was drinking that with everybody I knew, and so crazy. First beer hit me like a ton of bricks. So
I remember speaking to Russell near the end, and he could hardly speak. His voice was just. And that's why I couldn't hear him shouting at me to come back for the 1949 Glenlivet, because I'm pretty sure he did, but I just couldn't hear him because his voice was so hoarse.
Well, Russell's laid down such a marker now. If he comes, next year, which I really hope, because people will seek him out, because people were so happy with him, not just because of what he was pouring, but they were happy that he was there and G&M were there, and they're happy that he's at G&M. That's quite important too. So he's kind of right. I've set the benchmark here. Well, what you bringing next year? I am not convinced we'll do this after next year. This might be 1 and 2. Without the film, it is just another festival, so we'll see. And I might have other things to do, and Roy is always busy, and Guy and the other guys, Keith and everybody. So we'll see. But we've penciled this one in. But yeah, I'm interested. If Russell has brought something, I'll go see him before he runs out this year. Not like last year.
They were quite clever. It was the timing, wasn't it? Come back at 8:45 or 7:15 or whatever time it was. And I was there. I was chatting away to them. I thought, I'm going to get a bottle of water. Went over to the stand across the road from them. Picked up my bottle of water. Well, they didn't even have water. I was going to pick up. Didn't have any. Dean Jode was standing there. Hadn't seen him yet. Started speaking to him. By the time I got back, the bottle had gone. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, disgrace.
Yeah,
I heard it was shite anyway. So I'm not.
Yeah, I'm sure it's still over oaked and under strength and
terrible.
tall, clear, screw top rubbish.
Just overhyped. Just a number.
You were far better with whatever 7-year-old ex-bourbon cask you were drinking.
Bottle of Highland Spring or whatever water.
Whatever you were drinking, you could afford, whereas the other one, you'd have to get from auction.
Yeah, Mark saying more films. If you make more films, you'll get more festivals. I like that.
Yeah, well, I said we got one in the pipeline. So I said I'm not nothing to do with it. And we'll see. We'll see where that goes. This one coming is a really good idea, and I think fits in beautifully with the festival idea. What we felt was that having the 4-part series and the festival, it made it a full day's occasion, and that kind of set the scene. It is such a shame we can't get all 400 to do both, but then not everybody could do it anyway. We did actually have empty seats, fun enough, in the theatre hall. I think, were you there? Did you watch the 4-part?
Yeah. We arrived a wee bit late. Our taxi driver.
That's right. I do remember that. Yeah, we're just smuggling in the back. Yeah,
smuggled in the back. We missed the first, I think, 10 minutes of it, but
which is all me. You missed all the bits. What was really funny was we were pouring out the first dram, which was a Tormore from Ollie Chilton. Yes. And somebody so we're all in the theatre, we got the screen up, and somebody had pressed play, and I am the first person in the 4-part series. So I'm walking down the pouring, and then I appear behind me in giant screen saying, what is Independent? And everybody's just started, if they'd had popcorn, they'd have been throwing it at me. And then Guy, who's the director of the movie, runs over and he's tapping everything and ends up pulling the HDMI cable out because we weren't ready to go yet. So that was quite funny. And then the other funny bit was then Guy started to talk about the whiskey, and I'm like, Guy, Ollie's come down specifically. He was right over there. So yeah, a few cock ups, but
that's what makes it, isn't it? If it was too pristine, if it was too polished, then you don't get these stories.
And that's the nice thing. None of us are unapproachable. You're seeing all these people on a big screen, but we're right there in the room with you. It's a weird environment. It'd be like watching another documentary on something, but I'm a documentary fan.
You've got a great idea for next year is sell popcorn. Even if it's just to throw at you, that'd be cool.
I think I have seen whiskey flavored popcorn somewhere. We could do that. That's a good idea. I like that.
Getting the phone.
You don't want to clean the mess up afterwards. Popcorn's sticky, horrible stuff.
That's the whole stuff, though. They get paid for that, don't they?
Yeah, well, we've got an hour to break down that room and put tables up. So give people. You get the popcorn on the condition you eat all of it. You must not throw any of it in.
Yeah.
It's not part of this VIP experience is put up the tables and clean up the popcorn as well.
Clean up the popcorn, yes. Well volunteered. See, I knew there was a reason I wanted you to come down, Louise. That's Kat's job. You're the VIP. That's Kat's job. She came. So if you come next year, that'll be your job.
She's going to get. See if she watches this back. She's going to be quitting.
Worst unpaid gig ever.
I know.
Yeah.
Mark is saying we could do a Blether the film. I don't know how that would work.
Well, the idea after the film is we're doing a Blether with the people in the film. That's sort of the idea. So, we'll see. I'm really so there's 5 companies in the film, one of which is very introvert, elusive, and I'm desperate that we can get them on stage with a microphone and sort of coax them into a bit of illumination, but we'll see. There's lots to be planned between then and now. But I'm not thinking about it while the golf season's on. I'm going to wait till that's finished and then worry about it.
Yeah,
got my priorities right.
So where do you golf? What's your course?
I literally 2 minutes up the road, Thornhill Golf Course, the home of Andrew Coulthard. For those of you who know anything about golf, I took it up when I moved to Thornhill. When I lived in Campbelltown, I didn't play at all. Couldn't afford it, to be honest. And then when I moved to Thornhill 13 years ago, I realized I had to do something, so I picked up golf, and it's one of those infections. You either get it or you don't, and it went right into my vein and into my head and heart, and that's my escape. I've got a golf widow through the.
I tried and failed miserably at golf, to the extent that I would. So I probably got into it the wrong ways. My mum gave me a job at the golf. She ran the catering side of our local golf course, so I was a waiter. It was my first job. Knew all the golfers, knew the talk of golf. Went out, tried to play it, was terrible at it, and by the fourth hole, I was like, I'm pretty peckish. Mum's in the kitchen. I'll just go back and see what there is to eat. So it didn't. I think golf is the kind of thing you need to be good at, or have some kind of knack at to pursue it.
You did just save yourself a fortune.
Yeah,
an absolute. I think to have hobbies, whiskey, golf, you've got to you've got to have a really kind bank manager. They're two expensive hobbies, definitely. And then my other favorite thing are cars. So not that I have many, but I have a couple. Cars, whiskey, and golf. That's a recipe for failure.
Yeah. You could be like, I don't know, as rich as Elon Musk or something without that as a hobby.
And you could be as rich as him and still be shit at golf.
Louise, are you a golfer?
Absolutely not. 3 of the 4 places that I've lived, I've claimed, like, I don't know, what's the word? Historic ties.
Well, you're at Dornoch, one of the best in the world.
Thanks. Yeah.
I grew up in Musselburgh, so Royal Musselburgh and all their golf courses. And then I went up to Dornoch, and then even just like the golf shenanigans that happen around Aberdeen, I think I've just been surrounded by it too much, and I just don't want to do it. Mini golf, however, I will win every single time. I can't big golf, but I can mini golf. That's my input to golf conversations. If it's got a windmill, I'll do very well.
Russell's asking about your handicap, David. What are you playing off?
4.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's taken a long time. I think I started 21 and then 17, then 11, 8, and then 5 for about 4 or 5 years, and 4 at the moment. Been down to 3, but 4 at the moment. Yeah, we're lucky that where we live is not windy. So when I go out to places like Dornoch and Musselburgh, and then the wind's blowing, and I just don't know what to do. So it's funny when I worked for Springbank, their company secretary, Stuart Campbell, he was the Machrihanish champion of many, many years. He's about 6'3", and it just looks like an athlete. Unbelievable golfer. And I asked him, I said, why did you never go off and do the tour? And he said, I can't play when there isn't wind. He's only ever played at Machrihanish, and he's used to that wind coming off the sea, and he knows how to hit the ball for the wind to move. So if he came inland to my course, he'd be useless because he wouldn't know where to. He wouldn't be. He's an unbelievable golfer. I think that was just a bit of a ruse. But funny enough, he has I think it is the world record, at least the Scottish record, for the youngest and oldest club champion. So if you're ever at Machrihanish, go look up Stuart Campbell's name on the board of winners, and I think he is the oldest and youngest, or the biggest gap, or whatever. But lovely man, lovely guy.
I think Russell was egging on for a challenge here, and then he heard your handicap, and he's just replied with Jesus. So
that's why he's a handicap. You see, if he's playing off 28, It's the only sport in the world. Could you imagine you rolled up for a five-a-side football match and they're 5-0 up before you start? Yeah, it's a funny sport.
Yeah.
Anytime, Russell.
You have to stick at it to keep you, because if you don't register a score, your handicap just starts going up, doesn't it?
I'd love to play Russell, and the loser buys the drams or provides the drams. Then I'd probably lose on purpose.
That'd be the longest game ever because you're both trying to take.
Both trying to lose. Yeah.
It's like one of those tennis matches that goes on.
The win. How you work around that, but yeah.
I
got to not need to fact check the mini golf claim with Ewan because he will lie. I beat him every single time. He will not say so, but I beat him at mini golf every single time.
I've got this. I'm in Callum's park here. He said, "What's the point in golf if you can go for a big walk up the hills and mountains of Scotland without the burden of carrying clubs?" Yeah, apart from the golf course being probably a little bit flatter, I think I completely agree. I can't remember the last time I got a decent hill walk, but I used to absolutely love nothing more than going out and bagging a few Monroes. And again, I was just going to say the industry again. It's just, the weekends is when everyone else, all my friends are off work and they're going up hill walking and I can't get out there. So I just kind of fell out of the habit, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the problem with golf. It's a Saturday, Sunday sport. So
yeah.
Oh well, I can see Callum as a golfer though. Like, I think he could do well at it. It's fit enough.
Oh, certainly the walking won't be an issue.
Yeah, the walking, the carrying the bag. The only extra thing you're doing is swinging a club at a little bowl. So it is a very painful, fruitless exercise, but when it gets under your skin, it's like me with whiskey. When whiskey got under my skin, that was it. Everything I wanted to do was whiskey related, and golf was like that as well. So terrible. You can actually see in the back of the video. Let's see if I can point to it. That is a putter head. Yeah. That's a putter.
Is that golf shoes as well?
No, they're trainers.
It feels very dangerous to have a golf putter in the same room as all those whiskey bottles.
These are obscene. You might like these. This is for Tim, who works at SMWS. He and we both love the Nike Air 90, Air Max 90. Mm-hmm. They've got my initials on the back.
Look at that.
Isn't that pathetic? Tim, who works at SMWS, who does J&G Thompson, he'll enjoy that. He's got some killer shoes. Terrible. I'm a grown man. I should know better.
One of life's little guilty pleasures. So I was going to say, just I think people know who you are. There's a lot of guys at home who are watching. But you said there, when whiskey got under your skin, there was no going back. What was it that, for people who maybe haven't read Independent Scotch, what was it that got under your skin that really made you think, yeah, I'm in this for life?
I was at a friend's house in Skipton in Yorkshire, and he was a chiropractor, had a bit of money, and he poured me a Glenlivet 21. And that was September 1996. So that's the old Archive 21-year-old, if you remember that, the dark bottle with the green label. Yeah. And up until that point, I think the best whiskey I'd ever had was probably a Bell's. So that was what I thought whiskey was. I thought it was vomit juice. You stank of it the next day. You drank it with Coke. And actually, I say in the book that if you'd asked my peers what whiskey they drank, they would have said Southern Comfort, because that was the ignorance towards the brand. So when he gave me that Glenlivet 21, I just couldn't believe what it was. It was so complex and smooth and utterly delicious is really the crux of the matter. And that was it, really, that one dram. And his liking of it and another friend's kind of dalliance with it. And I was doing business and management at Bradford, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I just thought, well, why don't I explore this sector of whiskey in a bit more? And I found Lockfine Whiskies, who used to do their review and have the price list. I had one somewhere. I looked at it the other day. Oh, it'd make you sick. Couldn't afford it. I was like, as you said, Louise, I was a skint student. Couldn't afford any of it. But I did buy the books. So I still have 50 or 60 books I bought with student loans. which was my sort of path into it. And I tried to learn everything. I've forgotten most of it now. It's funny when I do my research and I pick up a book and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I forget I've even got a book, actually. It was quite funny. Somebody bought me one. I was like, oh, thanks so much. And then I put it in my right next to the one I've already got. So yeah, it was just that one dram. That was it. And I'm kind of glad it was the right time. Late 90s was absolutely perfect for whiskey.
Yeah.
Especially
for buying it as well, because you were getting your hands on some great liquid for great prices.
Insane. Mark and I were reminiscing the other day. He was either at the first or the second best of the best, and we had a bunch of the rare malts, and it was only a couple of years before that they were 50 quid a bottle.
I was trying to find. We had somebody in the other day trying to not flog us. They'd come across a dad's collection or granddad's collection, and they asked us to value it. I was just seeing if I could find but the price ticket was still on it, and it was like 24 quid, and this was like an old Macallan, but it was like a 90s Macallan in fluid ounces. That's how old it was for £24. So at the time, probably really expensive. But if you were to look at that,
that's when you say, "Good news! I'm going to double your money."
500% profit on that one.
Yeah,
It was, and there was another one that we got. This one didn't have a price ticket on it, but I sent a picture of that to Mark. It's an old.
Hielanman. Yeah. Well, Cadenheads, if you have one of those, Cadenheads would love to have a full bottle. I'm sure they'd buy it at top dollar for you. From
the only thing I worried about it was it was recapped. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's always a flag. It's a little bit of a step back. Well, do we know? But Mark's saying, yeah, mental times. It's unreal, and. Is whiskey a victim of its own success in that way, where it's just got crazy with the prices? There are still people trying to hold it back, but
there's so many companies that have forgotten that at the core, this is something we drink, and it is it's unfathomable if you go back just a few years to look at how it has moved beyond something that you and I, all three of us, would sit, pop a cork and drink, to something now that has become a piece of art, something that goes on a wall, something that's like a medal or a status symbol, or it's incredible. And so many companies have got caught up in their own hype, in their own self-importance. We have such limited stock. You don't, because I know what your sales figures are. They haven't moved. You're making more, but you're not selling more. Yeah. And it is quite incredible. We're seeing a correction at the moment, and there's a lot of doom and gloom around the industry. But what we're really seeing is the consumer is now, and you'll know this better than anybody else, both of you working in the shop, the £100 plus bottlings is where the consumer is now becoming very, very wary. Yeah. Unless it's like a 30-year-old something, you can get a 30-year-old grain maybe for 90, 100 quid. They're like, well, that seems pretty decent value to me. But when it's £100 plus and there's absolutely no kudos behind it, nothing of any, nothing that makes it worth that £100 plus level is where the consumer's backed right off in the last year or year and a half. And I think that's good. The product doesn't need to be over the £100 mark. It doesn't cost any more to make. You've just got the storage fees. Well, they're not astronomical. Yeah. And we do have this perception now that things with age somehow carry a ludicrous prestige to them.
Yeah, I'm glad you've said that. Just the week before we launch our next shop exclusive, it's going to be coming out.
What is it you're launching?
It's a Gordon MacPhail 17-year-old Fetter Cairn, first full sherry cask. So just Russell's handicap. Sorry.
Should I have said 150 quid?
I think 150 was what you actually meant to say.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Anything under that's banging value.
Yeah. But it has, you'll know, won't you, that the average, what's the average consumer spend? 50 to 60 pounds?
Yeah, we've seen it drop from, not much, but 60 to about, I think our AOV is about 57.
Yeah.
Give or take. Yeah, it's about that. But what we're finding is if people have a budget now, they're sticking to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody comes in with a £50 budget, you can maybe sneak it up to 60 with a bit of a good sales, or if it was a dram that you felt particularly passionate about. Nowadays it's that's my limit. 50 is or 60, whatever their limit. And I no matter what your budget is, what people are looking for is value for money. If your budget's £200, they want the best bang for buck, £200 bottle of whiskey they can get. No matter how loaded they are, that's what they're looking for. I think that's just a sign of the times, whether it's whiskey or watches or cars or whatever it is, you want that value for money. And you mentioned grain. I've seen a massive switch to grain, especially in indie bottlers, because they're seeing that age. People are looking at age and thinking, I'm getting a 30-year-old 75, 85 quid for this guy, the tonic tea cake 1994. Banging value. Perception of age. It's great, but I think people need to be aware it's grain. It's going to taste different to what they're used to. If we can get that across, I see grain whiskey becoming such a big hit with whiskey drinkers, because they're going to get that value with that perception of age. They just need to be taught that it's going to taste different. It's not going to be what you expect from a malt.
Yeah. You need the sort of, the age comes with that sort of, the wow thing. Oh, wow. If you're 30 years old and you're drinking something that's 30 years old, that's impressive. For me now, drinking anything older than me is ridiculous. But if you're drinking something that's your age, or, I was 10 years old when that was made, and all these kind of things, it's impressive. And the only way you can do that now really is with the grain whiskey that's affordable. And there's so many that are fantastic. As you said, that little brown dog, I had that at Duffton. I actually ate the tea cake and then had the whiskey, so it works really well on that order. That's the way to do it. But I've certainly seen that, and in talks with all the other retailers and things, it has been a pushback, and a lot of that is from the secondary market now also repelling these high, and maybe even at more than 150. It's the guys who are £500 plus, £1,000 plus. They're plummeting in the secondary market, in the tertiary market. And that's having a knock-on effect. And if they can't shift it to the guys that were buying it to lay down as an investment or a future, who's buying it? It's lost its appeal, especially when there is so much stuff out there that is fantastic drinking whiskey that is under the £100 mark. There's huge amounts. 90% of all the whiskey that's bottled is under the £100 mark, maybe 99%, and so much of it is so drinkable that it makes it very difficult to justify. As you say, people now won't go over that budget because they know they can get something for 50 quid, 60 quid, 45 quid, whatever.
I have just seen Callum's comment saying, asking me what my experience of in the shop of people looking for value for money and price points. I find it very, very difficult to get people to go anywhere over their budget, or even close to the upper limit of their budget. There's been a lot of times people have come in saying 50 to 70, and if there's a bottle for 65, 9 times out of 10 they're asking for something less. It's I don't know if that's...
It's when you give them 3 or 4 options and one of them's 55 and the other 2 are 65, they buy the 55.
I did have a very unusual interaction that was just quite exciting, and it was a very cool conversation that ended up happening, because it was a couple who'd come in for I think it was a birthday or a retirement gift or something, and they had a very specific we've got 130 quid. We want to spend all that 130 quid on a bottle of whiskey. It was 140 or something. So I was giving them all the stories of everything. They were like, just tell us what's 130 quid. This money will be in your shop. Just give us
none of the patter. Just
which I've never seen before. Like, that was unusual. And they were like, oh, it was cool listening to you, but okay.
What you should have done was got one of the Money McDavid cask craft or something like that and said, I can sell you this for 130 quid. There you go.
As long as that profit was coming to me, then I.
Yeah, well, yeah.
If that's the shady deal, we'll just
service charge.
I guess that might have been something like, I don't know, maybe a works kitty or something, and we get that quite a lot. They send in somebody who's got a lunch break at the time, and they're like, I don't know why they sent me. I've got no idea about whiskey or whatever. I just have this money to spend, so give me something for that value. I imagine it.
My favourite's always been when people come and say, we're buying a gift for insert person, dad, mum, whatever, and we know they like their whiskey, and you go, great. Any idea what they drink? No. Okay. Do they like smoky? Do they like sweet, sherry? We don't know. You ever seen any of the labels in the cabinet? No. Jeez, give me a bone. Give me something. Yeah. If I sell you a Lefroy and they don't like peaty whiskey, you're going to think I am the worst shop salesman in the world. But if they absolutely adore smoky whiskey and I send you a Glenmorangie or something, they're going to think, it's just, it's funny. It's like going to a car dealership and saying, I need to buy a car. Well, any color you like? No, there's no colors. No colors. Do you want 4 wheels? I don't know. Maybe. It's just have an idea. Just something. Give me something.
I think the one step up from that is they like a single malt, and it's almost like, and I guess from our point of view, you've got to take into consideration that the person walking at the shop is not the whiskey drinker, is not the buyer. They're just the buyer. They have no idea.
I think the challenge there, if they say I like a single malt, is to sell them a compass box. Just to take it home and go, that was delicious. Well, by the way, that was a blend. Just a challenge, just with some perceptions.
Here's the feeling. Try that.
I'm not about like value or price points that much until fairly recently, because most of the whiskey I've ever bought, like, my family aren't massive whiskey drinkers. None of my friends are particularly whiskey drinkers. The only real person I know who's a whiskey drinker is Ewan. So I don't buy him whiskey because I will get it wrong somehow, or he will drink anything. But see, trying to shop for his birthday. Can't find I'm not going to say it because he's watching.
See, I always say to people, because people say, I don't want to buy you a whiskey. And I always say, I don't care whatever you buy me will be interesting to me, even if it's a bottle of Bell's, because I haven't actually drunk Bell's for maybe 15 years. So if you buy me a bottle of Bell's, it will remind me of how bad whiskey can be, or if Bell's is better than I imagined. And sometimes you'll get a surprise because somebody will buy you like a black bottle and you'll have dismissed it from your mind. And then you open it and you go, actually, I need to give this blender some kudos here. I need to give credit where it's due, because that is a really drinkable whiskey. So I always say to people, never, ever be afraid to buy me a bottle. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't have a Glenfiddich 12 on the shelf. If you bought me a Glenfiddich 12, I now have a bought a Glenfiddich 12 on the shelf, and I can remind myself of the second best-selling single malt in the world, or if it's a Glenlivet, So that's how Ewan should be with you. Whatever you get him will be something interesting and different. And tell
happy
him
30th birthday, Ewan. David Stirk said I can give you a bottle of Bell's.
Yeah, bottle of Bell's. That's right. Make sure it's in a decanter, because.
I could give you loads of, we have people every day phoning asking to get else they can't get. So.
Well, I tell you, here's the best fact I found out right in Whiskyopolis. If you bought Bell's in the 80s and 90s, it's got a Springbank in it.
Really?
Best customer, the biggest customer of J&M Mitchell in the 80s and 90s was Bell's. So there you go. Arthur Bell and Sons. If you can find an old Bell's, it's got Springbank in it. There we go.
Now you've lit the torch paper on Bell's decanter sales now.
Well, this Mark, if Mark's still on, Mark and I were joking about this, that we should have we should have claimed that one of the decanters was almost exclusively Springbank, just to see if the price of that decanter went up.
But not announced which one. Just
Yes, right. Pick a really horrible, whichever was the worst selling one. Charles and Diana's wedding bottle that was filled with Springbank.
Yeah. Oh, that would be funny. I had to wait 8 years after opening the shop for somebody to buy me a bottle of whiskey for Christmas or birthday, because it was that actually, well, you've got plenty and you don't want to get it wrong. It's just, I would love to receive a bottle as a gift.
Yeah, because you get things you wouldn't buy, that
the only bottles I receive now are these things, the small ones, which is, don't get me wrong, are great, but I love how you use the Glenfiddich as an analogy there. In almost all my tastings, I use that as an example for people, because people don't drink Glenfiddich. It's in Scotland now. It's kind of that, and it's just a victim of its own success, where it's just got so popular that people are like, okay, I can get that anytime. I can pick up in the supermarket. Every pub's got it. I was like, when was the last time you actually tried it? Yeah, and people can't answer it. It's like, next time in a bar, because every bar's got it, remind yourself why it is the most awarded single malt or the biggest selling, whatever. Because it's a banging dram. I love it. I think it's a really good whiskey for having if you just want to enjoy a whiskey. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. It can't be number one if it's crap, can it? I mean, it just doesn't.
Exactly.
It's like the best-selling car in the UK is a great car. People aren't buying it because it's cheap. They're buying it because it's really good. It's not the Dacia Sandero. It's the Ford Fiesta or something. It is a great car, and it's number one for a reason. And Glenfiddich has been number one for a reason. I think it's Glenlivet that's number one now in the world, anyway. But I think Ian was telling me that Glenmurray are now number one in the UK.
Have they got it back? Because they went back. Was it 2 years ago they were number one? Then Jura took it last year. Or Glenmurray back. They've got it again.
That's what Ian says. So he's the authority. So I believe him.
Is he including the maple syrup cask in that? Or
yeah, I didn't see that in Tesco's. It's strange.
that 200 bottles.
Try it. It was really interesting stuff, but I didn't buy that. Actually.
Did you get to try it? Did you taste it?
Yeah. I bought all three. I bought all three of the private casks. I've got all three of them here, which I will do with my club at some point. But not this week. I've got my club meeting this week for these bottles.
Nice.
I've got 6 of them.
Are you opening them at this club meeting?
Yes, and I'm actually kind of hoping I've got 2 of the same.
Yeah.
Just to see if there's any difference in reaction to the whiskies. So that would be kind of cool if I get 2 of the same whiskies.
So you're going to pour them blind. They're going to try them, and then you're going to.
I will know, because I've got to obviously undo it and pour it for the people, but they won't know. So, but we have a fantastic. I live in the Lowlands. It's all farmers around here. So 90% of the people who come to my club are all farmers, and farmers are great for 2 things. First of all, they're really tight. Yeah, as you all know, tight farmers are tight. And second is they just tell you the truth. They just speak their mind, which are absolutely. I'm a Yorkshireman, so they're 2 attributes of Yorkshire. And I love the fact that we could have a £150 whiskey and a £30 whiskey, and they'll just tell us the £30 whiskey blows the £150 whiskey out of the water. So it'll be really interesting to see what they make of these 6. But good fun.
Well, that would be that's going to be fun. I'd love to be a fly in the wall at it.
It's quite a distance for you to come down for that, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Yeah. If I was a fly in the wall, I'd be dead by the time it was finished, because they don't live that long.
No.
Wasn't there somebody who bought a mystery bottle from us, and they also bought a mystery bottle from Aberdeen Whisky Shop, and it was the same bottle?
It was the same, yeah. Was it Alistair?
Alistair.
Yeah. But then he luck third time lucky. I think he got one from Still Spirit, and it was the Ardmore, the 26-year-old.
Oh, Belter.
Yeah. And the great thing about those mysteries, that they're all going to be cracking drams. For £65, I think they were all selling that. And it's so infuriating. You're now seeing them on auction. It's I get it to a point, not every shop can sell overseas, and I get that overseas market, or maybe think, well, I didn't get the chance, I missed out. What I hope is that they kind of stick to their budget and say, well, I'm not spending more than £65 on it. That's my limit. You'd like to think a buyer would do that, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. What a great idea! What a great concept to bring out to the industry in that kind of anti-flipping. Do you see an answer to that to stop people? Is there any way of?
There isn't. There's nothing. It doesn't matter if you're a club. I mean, you see obviously I'm friends with Roy and part of the Aquavita guys, and you see them lamenting the fact that even in that tight-knit community, there's still people buying Aquavita bottles and flipping them. The way I kind of look at it is, though, you just have to sort of shut it out, because at the end of the day, I don't know how many bottles I've got, 300-400, whatever it is. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I do not expect my wife to drink my whiskey. She doesn't like whiskey. So the good chance is that this stuff is going to get auctioned off, and my kids won't want it. My son's not old enough to drink yet, and my daughter has no interest in alcohol whatsoever. So why would they want it? They'd much prefer if that paid for a year's worth of university or whatever. And that's kind of how you have to look at these things. I don't spend that. I used to look at the auctions a lot, and I just don't spend much time looking at them anymore. And I'm me, Mike, I'm far more interested in supporting retail, because retail is being beaten from every single side, up, right, down, left, center. Everybody who can beat retail at the moment is whacking it with sticks. And I think they're all biting the hand that feeds at the moment. And I'm not just saying that you're on, because I support the retailers. We've got an attack on it with Amazon, with selling direct, with everything being available at every distillery, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So I kind of repel anything that doesn't help the people that I seek out when we go shopping on a high street. If we're in Ayr, if we're in Dumfries, if we're in Glasgow, Edinburgh, my wife, she knows she can leave me in a whiskey shop like it's a daddy daycare center and come back in an hour, and I'm still there chatting to Norbert or Matthew or yourself or whoever it is. It doesn't matter. We're going to St Andrews next week, and she'll be able to go off and do whatever she wants for a couple of hours, where I bore Archie to death and buy a couple bottles at Luvian's.
We're lucky we've got a new look across the road. So
as much as I hate that stereotype, it is annoyingly true. Like, there's so many people that come in, they're like, oh yeah, my wife's clothes shopping across the street. Like, oh, right, okay.
You need to, what would be the equivalent for a non-whiskey drinking man? I don't know.
Our beer section in Inverurie whiskey shop.
Yeah, that's fine. If it's the woman that drinks and the man doesn't, which I've seen before enough times. But then, it's so I repel against all these things that hurt independent retailers. I see Alba's just gone under. Spirit of Alba.
I noticed that last week. Yeah.
It's tough. It's really, really tough. And I think that's why I'm such an advocate of independent bottlers as well. 99% of them all use retail. That some of them have their direct-to-consumer stuff. Some of them rely on it, but the rest of them rely on guys like you and all these specialist retailers. And without them, the whiskey industry would be a much smaller and less interesting place.
Yeah. We had a customer in, and he's been a regular for years, and he always comes in and buys something really nice. And through chatting to him for the first time, we kind of, he had a bit of time to spare and was japping away to us. And he says, I just drink Talisker 10. Yeah, that's the only whiskey he really drinks. And he goes, I pick it up in the supermarket for whatever it is nowadays, 35, 40 pounds. He goes, that when I'm in here, I'm buying for somebody else. He goes, I come to you guys for a gift because I want them to know that I've put some thought into it. And, I want to know the story or a little bit more about the whiskey and whatever. It's never for himself. He's a standard whiskey drinker, and that's what he is. But he goes that extra mile, and I actually respect him a lot more for that. Knowing what he likes, but knowing that he wouldn't feel right going up into Tesco's and picking up a supermarket dram if he was buying a gift.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think they have their place. It's a bit like travel retail.
Yeah.
These guys have all got their place, but it is. I'm going to pick my words careful here, but to a certain extent, it's mediocre whiskey. The stuff that you can't buy outside of the specialist. It is your run of the mill. We're talking about Glenfiddich 12. It's a fine dram, but once you've got to a level of drinking, it's just a fine dram. You've got to take that leap to the next level, and I always liken it to the hi-fi world. When I was a kid, it was the all-in-one Sony and Iowa systems. They're fantastic. And then my ex-brother-in-law said, I'm going to go to Bristol, and there's a hotel where they've got hi-fi systems in every room. Really? So I went down, and you get your little tiny mind blown as you leave each room and hear these systems. And okay, when you find out the prices, your mind gets blown again. But it takes you to a level and an experience that you didn't know existed before. And that's very much how I see the specialist retailer. If we didn't have these guys, whiskey would become this sort of inferior product because it becomes mass market. It would become 40%. It becomes colored. It becomes sort of pleasing to the masses. If we didn't have all the independent bottlers, if we didn't have the expressions that will never see the inside of a supermarket, they just don't have shelf space. We'll lose that palette. We'll lose that people having their minds blown, and that's what we want. That's what the industry is all about. We want those rooms where you go in and go, oh my god, I had no idea. I can hear symbols that I didn't know were there before, and I didn't realize there was an elephant on the album. All this kind of stuff.
I love it. I love being able to have a bottle on a shelf that somebody walks in and then, oh my god, you've got a Springbank 10 or you've got a So whenever we get a Duff Mill or a Thompson's or something like that, only half of it goes online, half of it stays on the shelf, because we love nothing better than somebody walking in and finding that and think the Thompson mystery malts were a great example of that. I had one left on the shelf for like 4 days, and somebody was in and I can't believe you still got that left. And he just bought it.
I'd have bought it. I've got 6, but I would have bought it. Absolutely.
I love it.
Even the other day, there was a couple in who were absolutely delightful. They were visiting their daughter, so they lived up like Thurso way or something, but their daughters just moved to Aberdeen. They were like, oh, we'll have a nice cute day out in Inverurie. They walked past the shop with the open door and they saw the TB BSW. And I don't think I've ever seen, he must have been about 70. I don't think I've ever seen like a 70-year-old man run to a shop as fast as he came through that door. He was like, you've got Thompson Brothers. I was like, yes, it's here. Hi.
I love it.
That is always fun. Even like the gins and stuff that we have, like seeing people get excited about niche stuff, or not even niche stuff, just I don't know. I love seeing people happy, and they're always happy.
The gin side, what we find is people get excited about it when it's local to them. So if they come from Dordrecht or they come from Dumfries and Galloway, or that, Harris is probably the one that they're fed up seeing over there, so they don't get excited about it. Seeing
I've got a casket.
Yeah. But it's like, oh my god, that I live next door to or I used to work with, the distiller or whatever, and it's quite cool, and that's what I love, David. Same as you, that kind of idea that you've made somebody's day by having that bottle that means something to them, or tell them a story that can mean something. And you don't get that through online. You lose it.
It becomes a commodity.
Yeah,
there's no selling involved. There's no personal experience, and if you take the personal side out of this product, it might as well be vodka. It might as well just be something you mix to oblivion. I've always felt that if you take people out of the whiskey equation, we'll lose sight of what this thing is. And it is part and parcel of its location and its people and its environment and its history and culture and its message and its ambassadorial role and everything. And without the specialist shops, because I've run 3 now, all failed, not failed, but changed maybe. The best part of it is converting and showing and demonstrating and as we said, that wow factor. Whoa, what is that? And I love when I go see Matthew at Good Spirits, who's clearly my local for me. Matthew always knows if I walk in, if he gives me something that will blow my mind, I'm walking home with a bottle of it. So, the kids and the dog are waiting at the top of the steps, and I'm in there, and he's like, "Oh, have you tried this Aaron? 9-year-old Aaron, 9-year-old Aaron, bang, right? So I'll take one, which is sat somewhere.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and that's what it should be, and then that bottle then gets converted to 30 other people, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah. I think what we need, or as an industry, as whiskey drinkers, consumers, and ambassadors, what I love about it is that experience, and what we're seeing more and more now. I think that the shops that struggle maybe are the ones who are just a shop. You need a tasting room. You need an ability to get involved with the customers out with just buying, because it's too niche. It's too small a market now of just walking and buying whiskey. You need to be able to experience that. At the very least, you need a tasting barrel with a couple of bottles on it you can showcase. Great to have a tasting room. And when we opened up, it's probably why we've survived so long, is, I was always adamant we're going to have a tour bus. We're going to do tours. We're going to do tastings. The online Blether, this came through lockdown, where everyone was online, but I wanted to be able to see, talk to us. Let's have a chat. Let's meet people and talk as if we're in the pub. And, it's the old adage, people buy from people. If the guys at home learn a little bit about us, learn a little bit about you, Louise, and whoever our guest is, they feel that connection. You've answered a question directly to them. Think, I like David, I like his stuff. I'm going to look him out next time I see a Stirk Brothers bottle, and I'll buy it. And that's what you miss from, Whiskey Exchange, Master of Malt. As good as these guys are at what they do, you when you phone them up, you don't speak to the guys running the show kind of thing. We really need to push that experiential side of it, as in whatever way we can to get that message across, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the only way I think we're going to get the next generation of drinkers.
Yeah,
if you can't show them that experience, if you can't bring them to that experience, and the hi-fi thing is a really good example.
Yeah.
Until you've been in that room and heard that stereo, it's just a 5,000, 10,000, 1,000, whatever it is, piece of equipment. And the same with the shop. You got people walking in bamboozled by 300, 400 whiskeys or plus, until they actually connect with it, and you can guide them and highlight the things. It is just a product on a shelf. They're all pastas until you've taken them out of the packet and cooked them. It's and we take that for granted because we're all whiskey geeks. We walk in and go, oh, ding ding, I know, we know Thompson Brothers, and we're the experts. We forget that sometimes, that the people coming through, it is just generic whiskey.
Yeah. It's that people buying for the granddad who only drinks Holland Parker. Yeah.
Until you can highlight, right, I've got 500 whiskeys and they all taste different. Oh, I don't believe you. Okay, well, here's 2. Oh my God, I had no idea. It's that kind of.
And they're both from the same distillery.
Yeah.
And they're
I can't remember where that's from. Oh, it's Le Mans '66, the movie about Shelby Ford GT, and the guy flies. The head of Ford flies down, and Matt Damon drives him around. Have you seen that?
No.
And he ends up weeping, and he's going, I had no idea. It's a brilliant movie. It's got Christian Bale and Matt Damon. If you haven't seen it, watch it. But that is what it's like if you give people 2 totally different whiskeys and they just think whiskey is this completely narrow, generic thing. It's like, and the tears. I have no idea. That's what it's like. So you go watch that movie. You'll enjoy it. Le Mans '66. Really, really good movie. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm going to rewind 20 minutes to Adrian, who's been, I'm sure, on tenterhooks waiting for us to come back to this question.
He'll be in bed. He'll be
He'll be knocking on your door to ask this in a second. Which indie do you all think? So this is for all three of us. Do you think is one of the most underrated, under-recognized for the quality that they put out? Present company excluded, of course. So we can't go Claxton's. And I would have.
I've already sold them anyway. They're phenomenal stuff. And Adrian's such a passionate guy.
I would have instantly
Louise,
gone.
go first.
No, no. Mike, go first. I need thinking time.
Underrated? By who? By what?
Under-recognized, I think.
Under the radar.
Instantly I would have went Little Brown Dog, but they just won Best Independent Bottler of the Year last year.
I was with them on the night. Yeah, I've never heard Andrew squeal before, but now I've heard it.
They're no longer under-recognized. They've got the biggest recognition. So sorry, Andrew, you're out, and you're in Normandy.
Just in North Star, they won it twice. I was with him when he won. I'm the lucky charm here. If you want to win it, add me to the mix.
I'll table with you. I'll maybe not say a bottler, but a range that a bottler does. I think the Murray McDavid Cask Craft, I think, is phenomenal for the quality of price. And they also,
I
think what they've done is phenomenal. So
Dean's such a good guy too. He's so passionate about what he does.
And actually, just in behind there, the Ollie Chilton's Single Malt to Scotland range is fantastic. I don't think they get enough press.
Maybe that's a good shout for underrated. Is Ollie and those releases there? There's been some absolute belters in that range.
Yeah.
Ollie's underrated. Anyway.
I got this actually, Rick. I hope you're still watching. I'm down to about there in the bottle. Oh no, it's there in the bottle. I was trying to judge where my hand was, and it was there we go. And this was a Linkwood, 13-year-old. I mean, free to me, but I'm not sure how much Rick paid for it. It was great. But these guys seldom come any higher than kind of £80 for. They're not single cask, but 3 or 4, maybe a parcel. But the liquid is phenomenal, so good.
Dutch Judah has just said exactly what I was thinking. AD Rattray is overlooked quite a lot, I think. And Dutch Judah also thinks.
They're lacking a little bit of spokesperson, really, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're lacking a bit of exposure.
I think so.
Yeah.
Everywhere I've seen them, and every time they've been about, it's almost like they've seen more like museum pieces. Even though there are there's plenty affordable stuff in their range, or not affordable, but good value, But I think sometimes the way they're displayed, even if they're behind locked glass, you'll get customers who just won't even look at it because if it's in a locked cage, it's no for me.
Yeah.
But AJ Rattray are just, I think they absolutely know what they're doing and they make very, very good choices.
Some pedigree as well.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of meeting Tim Morrison, and you will never meet a nicer man in your life. Just stunningly nice, scarily nice. I'm going to go for these guys, Colin and Bruce at Drownful. Just two of the nicest people you'll ever meet, and everything they bottle is full of flavor. And I know Colin, they've been doing it about a decade or 12 years or so, and not really received sort of the exposure they need or should get.
Yeah.
But it's funny, all these independent bottlers, sometimes you think they're maybe a bit truculent or they're a bit reserved, and then you get to know them and you just realize that they're all like their whiskeys, they're all personalities. They're all amazing people. There's so few bad eggs in this industry. We're so lucky. When we were doing the festival, we weren't sat down going, well, we don't want them coming and we don't want them coming and we can't put them next to them and they don't play well with others and they stink and all. There was none of that at all. It was literally, we want all of these guys to come And it was a shame we couldn't fit everybody in. There was a few people at the end of it were going, "Oh, I can't believe we didn't get them to come along." And I mean, there was no Berry Brothers and Rudd. Can you imagine that? We'll correct that for the next one. But there was no Berry Brothers at an independent festival. These guys have confirmed they're coming back, but I've just enjoyed their company so much, and I feel that their personalities come through in their whiskey. So I'm going dram full.
Yeah.
Here's the question. If you had to do a tasting of only 3 drams
Oof.
based on your Independent Scotch book, what would they be?
3 drams. My God. Well, immediately one sticks out, which was a Signatory Springbank 8-year-old bottled in about 2004, 3 or 4. That absolutely blew my mind on what young whiskey can taste like. It was, I can't tell you anything more than it was a Springbank 8-year-old by Signatory. It was unbelievable because I was at the first Limburg festival and somebody poured this for me like 8 years, because I was working for Cadenheads. It's like 8-year-old Springbank, and it just rocked my world. So that, just simply because it was a 94 pointer and it was 8 years old. Just 3 whiskeys, Jesus.
I was going to say 5, but 3 seems harder. So
I have to be a bit biased. I'm going to pick one of the whiskeys I bottled, which was a 1973 Macduff.
stunning.
Absolutely stunning. I think we only got 120 bottles. I've got one up there. 120 bottles out of it. The best whiskey out of the 2,000 casks I bottled. That would be in it. And then it's a tough one. It's either a late 70s Bowmore or a 75 Brewer that Douglas Lang bottled. That was both of them, 2 of the finest whiskies I've ever had. And at the time they were about £100 each, and now they're probably 10,000.
Yeah.
So those 3, but I could list 100 if I'm honest. But yeah, those, if you're pinching me and, gun to head, they're the 3 I would do because they stand out for different reasons. I would just love to see people's faces when they drank that 8-year-old Springbank. And then you told them it was 8, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe," because at the time, in the early 2000s, everybody was drinking 30-year-old whiskey. And then you drink this 8-year-old, and you're like, "Oh, I'll buy a bottle. How much is that?" "Oh, it's €60. What? That's only 8 years old. It just, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question. If you had to do a tasting of 3 drams based on Pioneer and Spirits, what would you do?
Are you just going through his books?
So like 3 drams from what? Sorry, from Pioneer and Spirits.
Yeah.
Well, Darth Mill. That straight off the bat. Francis gave me one of their UK exclusives. I can't remember which one it was, but he will know. That was exceptional. Inchdenny single malt. I can't remember the name they've given it. Is it King? It's not King Glass. Yeah, King something Lassie. Like that. King Lassie, yeah. That was one of the best things I tasted in the 25. And then it would have to be a Kilkerran because Kilkerran is in my blood. So I will probably go with the 8-year-old cast strength because, again, you blow people's minds with an 8-year-old whiskey. I feel really bad because I should have a Rassi in there because Rassi should be everywhere because it's phenomenal. But they would be the 3. Off the top of my head, they would be the 3. Yeah.
Okay, here's a question.
You can kill everybody but 3 people in the world.
I want to get you tied up to a lie detector here. Just the intensity of question.
I thought you did actually have another question.
Whiskyopolis?
3 drams from Whiskyopolis? Well, that's easy. That's Campbelltown. So, yeah, back to that Springbank 8. No, of their whiskies, the Frank McCarty 25-year-old, because Frank's an amazing guy and deserves more credit.
100%.
I'll go with the Kilkerran 20, the oldest whiskey they've released. And this Glen Scotia is one of the best I've ever had, so I'm going to include that as well. And I've had their 40 and 45-year-old, and sorry guys, don't bother buy that. Go get one out of their shop. You can't afford the other stuff anyway, so go get one.
What I loved about Glen Scotia is I had a friend down about this time last year. It was after the festival anyway, I remember that. And he phoned me or sent me a message saying, Mike, I can get a 15-year-old or a 5-year-old release. What would you recommend, or what should I get? And I said, I have no ideas. But I sent Ian McAllister a message and said, what would you? He goes, go for the 5-year-old. £45, I think it was. The value for money, he says, you won't get a better dram. I think that was pretty cool of Ian. One, to reply to me so quick, just a text message in the middle of the night kind of thing. And two, go for the younger one. Don't go for the 15-year-old. If you want value for money, go for that 5. I think that epitomizes Ian and the whole, Glen Scotia product is cracking. I've got, what is it? I've got the port cask. If you know me, you know I love a port cask. So I've got this 7-year-old first fill recently, start of the year. Bought at the end of last year. I picked up the start of this year. It's such a good whiskey. So nice.
Do you have spare sample bottles at home?
Yeah. I've got an empty one sitting right here. I could fill
that one's a you can't see because it's a stupid camera, but that is a Springbank fresh port from the cage. So I'll maybe keep that for next March. No, I won't. That'll be gone. Those just got longer there. It'll be long gone. I'll have refilled it with something else. See if he notices.
We're kind of touching on your books just now. I've got 2 questions on your book. I've got 4 here. The Whiskyopolis, Independent Scotch, Distilleries, Campbelltown, and the Pioneering Spirits. Of all the books you've done, 1, what was the most fun to do? And 2, what was the most challenging to do?
That's really easy. The most fun was obviously Pioneering Spirits because I got to travel around. I mean, I paid for it. The book will never, ever break even because I traveled all around Scotland off my own money and visited all these amazing people and got to see amazing places. The easiest was Independent Scotch, but the most fun was Pioneering Spirits. The most challenging was the Campbelltown one.
The original one, your first one.
No, the first one was easy peasy. That was just a bunch of archive material thrown together. The Whiskyopolis one, that was difficult because I wanted it to be definitive. The first one I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know resources. I didn't know how to collate. I didn't know how to put together. Didn't know how to tell a narrative. You got to think it's 21 years ago. I was a much different person. But when I started this one in late August, September, the rabbit holes it sent me down, and I'll give you 2 examples of how difficult this book was to research. The first person I started to research was Dr. John Smith. Now, if you Google Dr. John Smith, you will get about 8.5 billion returns. It is the most common name in the world. Why he couldn't
many Doctor Who like sub?
Yeah, exactly. Just John Smith. And then of course the first legal distillery in Campbelltown was called Campbelltown. So if you Google Campbelltown Distillery, good luck with that. Yeah. So you suddenly work out that to do the research, you've got to find weird sidelines to enter into how and what was going on. And even then, such scant information. So I had 2 trips to Campbelltown. I think I had 3 trips to the Glasgow archives. I mean, one of them was completely fruitless.
Because you not just asked Callum.
Yeah, maybe I should have. Maybe it should have been a co-authored, but with Callum. I didn't think about that actually. I'm with these things. I'm never proud. If the work's better with 2 people, I'm not bothered. But I wanted it to be the complete and definitive guide, and therefore I cut out a huge amount of other stuff. There's no illicit distilling in there. There's no customs and excise, and there's no tangential information about the coal mine, the railway, all this kind of stuff, because it doesn't really help with the picture. And having said that, it's still 110,000 words in there, so that was a tough book. And all the time while I was doing it, I thought, why couldn't I have picked a region that had 3 distilleries? why 27 plus whatever? So yeah, this is why I'm reluctant to do the Speyside book with 50 odd distilleries.
Oh god, yeah.
It was pretty tough, because you build up boxes and boxes of these printouts of stuff, and you've got to whittle down and highlight and go through and work out what's worth telling and what isn't worth telling, what's interesting, and so on and so forth.
The editing of it after all the research must be so. I guess it's like, we just ask you what your favorite whiskies are. You must have like 1,000 favorite whiskies. It's like picking 3. What do you pick out of that information? And maybe something that was really, really hard to find, you want to include that because of the difficulty you had finding it, but in the bigger picture, it's just not worth telling.
Yeah, and you find really fun stuff. I found a murder mystery from one of the distilleries, and I was chatting to Mark Watt knows about this. I was chatting to him and said, I'm going to lead with this in a chapter. We've got a murder mystery from one of the distilleries, but it wasn't really a murder mystery. I mean, it was front page of Campbelltown News for weeks, and who done it, and all this Agatha Christie style shit and everything. And then when you boil down to it, you think, well, actually, it's got nothing to do with the distillery whatsoever. It's just literally one of the workers. And you're thinking, that's not what the book's about. The book's about the Campbelltown distilling industry. If you start going off on tangents of all these other, you start losing the main thrust. So yeah, you're right. You can spend a week looking into all these things and then completely dismiss all that information, which is a bit of that's just the way it is. And some people might read it and say, well, that's a bit boring. I said, well, you try and tell a story about an industry that's really exciting, one industry that just deals with, one thing. It's tough. Unless you're into whiskey, there's not much excitement in there at all. It's not very exciting. When I did the first book in 2005, I wanted a smoking gun. I wanted it to be something that caused the demise. That one thing, whatever it was, spoilt water, shitty casks, herring casks, whatever it was. I wanted that one thing. Doesn't exist. There isn't that one thing. So then when I came to the second book, there isn't the smoking gun. So you've got to then work out, okay, what's the combination of things that's going on? And it's a less sexy story, but makes it accurately, historically accurate. And anybody in the future reading that will get a full picture of the Campbelltown whiskey industry rather than maybe something I made up.
Yeah. I guess there's that. And what I love, the Chasing the Dram book. Have you read that?
Yeah, I've got that. Yeah. What's her name?
Chasing the
Dram.
Yeah.
We had her on earlier this year, and her name's I'm not Chasing the Dram. Opening the Case.
Oh, Justine's book.
Yeah. I was thinking Rachel doesn't sound right. We had her on.
Yeah, Justine Hazelhurst. Yeah.
That is very just here's the facts. There's a little bit of personal stories about the people behind it, but what I love about it is, this is what I found out, what happened on this day and this date, and it is just you're reading it, and it's not like I think it would make a fascinating TV series. But for a very small community.
Yeah, so, you've got the wider picture of the whole industry.
Yeah,
it would be. I think you could take that and embellish it, and create the outside stories of all these House of Cards crumbling. Yeah. Without, you wouldn't even need the factual information. You could take what Justine's done, and you could have this central implosion, but the ripple effect. That's a really cool story, and it's such a shame that Justine did a fantastic job on exposing the ripples of because there were 2 collapses. It wasn't just Patterson's. It was Patterson's and the one that's gone completely out of my mind. It's in my book as well. Brickman. So they're the 2 major collapses, huge firms, and because of them, this massive it's not investment, it's credit loans that just crumbles. It would be a fascinating Victorian story to tell.
Yeah.
What I loved about, and I'm so grateful that she did hers, is it really helped me with my book, because I've got a chapter on the Patterson crash. And
Copy paste.
yeah. Well, I have quoted her. It was brilliant. Her book came out. Mine came out a few months later, and I've literally quoted her in. So I'll be the first person to quote her. But what's fascinating is that the Campbelltown industry was watching this from afar, other side of Scotland, going, well, that won't affect us. It bloody well did.
Yeah,
and that was the first crumbling blocks of their industry, was the Patterson crash. And they were like, well, we don't sell to them anyway. And it's incredible how narrow-minded they were. And it reminds me of during COVID, when barley prices went really bad. And a guy in Ireland who was in the industry said, well, we grow our own barley, so we're shielded. And I remember writing to him and saying, are you off your nut? Do you think Ireland is separate to the rest of the world? If barley prices are affected in Pakistan or in Ukraine or in Denmark or Scotland, they are affected in Ireland too. This idea that you can somehow be self-sufficient, like you're in Greenland or something, well, we've got ice, we're fine. It doesn't work that way. And of course, not that I'm big-headed, but I was proved correct, because barley prices, if they go up here, they go up here. And that's exactly what happened with the Patterson crash. They collapsed over here. Campbelltown felt it as acutely as almost anybody else. And that was the start of the slide. And Justine had some wonderful little bits in her book that really, really helped me. I couldn't help but unwrap that and read it in one day. It was very good.
Yeah, I loved it. I went, and much like your Independent Scotch book, the first time I read it, it was over 2 days, 2.5 days or something. It was just, it's such a good read, and it's for two different reasons. One, yours was very personal, and it was very much a story of yourself, and it was great to kind of read that in a way that was fun, truthful, and honest. Whereas Justine's was great in the other direction, where it was completely impersonal. It was literally listing facts. I love facts. I love numbers and things like that. And I just thought that was such a cool way of doing it. Depersonalize it. But what a cool drama story that would be. I think if, like you say, if you add in, if you made that like a legacy or was it legacy? No, it's maybe not legacy. What was the Brian Cox?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's not legacy. It's but I know what you mean.
Yeah. But yeah, something like that tie into that family and make it all about them. You need some kind of artistic license and all that.
You can change the names and stuff, but based on real events. But it was cataclysmic. It was cataclysmic. I think it would make an amazing series. Yeah.
Have you guys read Mash House?
Mash House.
Yeah, Mash House. So it's a fiction. It's like a crime thriller set around a nondescript Highland distillery. So I think the writer, he's an English teacher, and he just absolutely fell in love with whiskey. He's just a whiskey fan, does all the distillery tours and everything, and he wanted to do a creative whiskey setting story. So it'd almost be fun to have the three of you all together. So we'd have the extremely factual, the factual and the personal, and the whiskey fiction.
Complete fiction.
I feel like that would be a really cool panel to have together.
That sounds like one of my tastings, Sabine. The completely real, the fiction, the complete fiction. We're back to that tour where you do 30 facts and 29 of them fake. Mash House. I've not heard of that, Louise. I'll have to check that out.
Oh, it's Mash House. It's called The Mash House by, I think it's Alan Gillespie. It was crowdfunded for publishing and stuff. So it's very small scale, but very, very cool.
I do know that either a Belgian or German, I can't remember which author, wrote a crime novel based on Campbelltown, and I'm the whiskey expert in it. but I've never seen the book. She emailed me, this is years ago, and said, "Can I use you as the whiskey expert in the book?" I said, "Of course you can." And so I'll send you a copy, and then never got one. So
by name, is it? Are you named by name, or are you?
So, yeah, I'm named in it. Yeah, probably spelt my name wrong.
Have you ever had an idea for a book or a piece of writing that you think would be too niche or too weird for people to want to read?
In the whiskey
Ideally
industry.
Whiskey related.
Yeah. I'm not technically minded, so my ideas tend to be more sort of. I thought the Independent Scotch would be too niche, and yet that sold really, really well. Second print done. There's lots of stories still to tell. Say Speyside is one of the stories, the Glenlivet thing. But there's still lots of stories to tell. Interesting that the same night we're on, obviously, the antiquarian guys are on. They're talking about the history of maturation. That is a hell of a story. But that would be a niche within a niche. Because maturation's only 170 years old. Whiskey wasn't matured before 1850s, really. Not in the way we think of it today. So that's a hell of a story. And one of the fascinating things I found when I did Whiskyopolis was that they were not buying traditional sherry casks in the 1870s, 1880s. They were buying transport casks. So this whole thing now we have, that's not a real sherry cask. Well, it hasn't been.
Never was. Yeah.
Exactly, for as long as we know. So I'd be interested to see what Arthur and Dave have dug up about that. Maybe Dave Squirrel.
When you talk to the bodegas and people, they've got casks in there from when the bodega was founded, like 200-year-old casks sitting there. They're not going to sell that to us.
No. And would it be any good anyway?
Well,
it's 200 years old. There's no oak.
It's crazy. There is that element of the more you get into the whiskey industry and the back end of it and what happens and how stuff is made, you kind of lose that romance and it all becomes fact and science and figures and stuff. You do kind of. Sometimes you wish I wish I never found that out because it kills the story. Yes. I had a group of Americans in with me today doing a tasting, and I didn't kind of completely destroy the story, but it was maturation's not that old, relatively speaking. It's an art. It's not really a magic. There's a little bit of magic to it, but and they were asking about the peat and all this. And it's like, when you break it down into kind of rules, it kind of, you realize what you're telling them. You're like, I'm really killing the story of Scotch. They're expecting people hiding in the hills and
fairies and magic dust and magic beans. And,
which is a kind of a, it's a bane of the passion, isn't it? You kind of find everything. Like, can we get too? Can we know too much? Do you think? Do we lose a little bit of that?
Slaying the golden goose, as I said, definitely.
Yeah. And maybe that's what you're talking about. Maybe losing that drinking aspect right at the start of the night. Is it people that know too much, or people want to know too much that they lose the story? Are we in danger of losing the history and that romance that what makes whiskey by people going on tours and asking for fermentation times and distillation temperatures and all this kind of stuff that can be too geeky. Why not just believe the old stories? The guys like Alan Winchester kind of can bring up about the old days.
And I think that's part of going back to where we started. The whole premiumization, this whole aspirational side, and it's taken away from what it is. I want it all to be brought back to the fact that people need to know that Bowmore is made on a tiny little site on the Isle of Islay by a few people, and that Glenmorangie is made up in the Speyside. It's a big place, but it's still just made by a few people in the traditional way. They seem to have forgotten the history and culture and heritage of the product, and now want to sell it as some magical mystery. It's beyond your comprehension of how we come together and make this whatever it is. No, it isn't really. but we've got guys who know what they're doing, and they've done it for a long time, and we've been there for a long time. And the reason we're so good is that we know what we're doing, and we've been there a long time, and we do it this way. And a lot of it, I really sort of bristles me when I see these Aston Martin decanters and things, and I think, oh, for God's sake, you know that's made in a century-old building with 25-year-old stills with a guy that just does that every now and again.
Yeah,
Because he knows when to do that, and I just wish they would bring that back. That's what made people fall in love with the first time when they visited. You make this doing this? That's incredible. Whereas now it's reverse. Look what we can do. Blah blah. Oh, you know what? You didn't do it. The guys back there did it, and I wish it would return to that. That story. The book that, Louise, back to you. The book that has yet to be written, Mark Watt and I, back in 1999, 2000, we dreamt of writing The Speyside Way, where Mark and I hit every single pub and distillery that we could before one of us more or less went to the infirmary. And I think that would be a hell of a book to write. Obviously, I would be way before Mark. Someone needs to film it.
He's a machine.
Mark and I always dreamt doing the Speyside when we literally hit all the cracking, like the Mash Tun and the Highlander Inn, and before it closed, the Fiddick Side, and all these little places, and we would write and talk about them and the culture. And
the Fiddick Side isn't closed.
Is it not?
No, it's just up for sale, but it's still like functioning as a bar. Like, it's still open, so it's still.
See, we can advertise it.
Pardon? Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a slight problem in that Mark's drinking ability dwarfs mine to the state where I'd almost better drive him. But anyway.
I think Mark's drinking ability dwarfs pretty much anyone's. It's scary.
Yeah. I've always said that Mark is Obelix from Asterix and Obelix. He fell into the vat as a child and has been immune to it ever since.
He was born on the Macallan estate, wasn't he?
He was born in Easter Elkies, that's right. So, yeah.
We'll tag team the Speyside Way. You guys come like top to bottom. We'll meet you in the Highlander Inn, and then me and you and I'll do Highlander Inn South. There's a book for you.
I think you will need more than that.
I'm working out what my epigraph will be. You know, it's.
This is David. Words of David.
Yeah,
I went on a tour with.
That's right. He tried the Speyside Way, and he did not get far.
Brilliant. Oh, that's so cool. Well, I hope you jump into that, because I think that would be a pretty epic journey. You would need a scribe, I'm sure.
We should have done it 20 odd years ago when he and I would have got VIP tours, and we could have done like a Ralph Steadman kind of, we're sat here in Glenfiddick's, warehouse number 8 drinking 1930 Glenfiddich, and I think that's what would have made the book. There are times when the book needs to be you on an absolute VIP experience, because that's what people want to read. And there are times when people don't want to hear that you're just some lucky bastard that got to go places where other people don't want to go. I think exactly. If Mark and I did a tour, people would want to hear us drinking and doing things that they couldn't ever do. They want to hear us in the corners of warehouse, They want to hear us opening stuff that isn't available to the public, that is destined for bottling decades, all that kind of stuff. It wouldn't be a case of Mark and I did the tour at Glenfarclas and we had a good time, which is kind of pioneer spirits to a certain extent. We would need to be given VIP access, and I'm not sure our reputations would allow us any of that. So we're 20 years too old.
Plug it.
Plug it.
You can't ask. They can only say no.
That's right. Dear Gordon MacPhail, what have you got in Ben Romick's warehouses that we can come taste? Dear Mark and David, please piss off.
Well, we have a mutual friend at Gordon MacPhail that might.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
He's just said sounds like an 8-season TV series, and I feel like that's just how long it's going to take you to get from the top of the spade to the bottom.
Yeah. Watch how much Mark and David age in 8 weeks.
What was the Highlander? Not the Highlander, the Outlander guy.
Sam Heughan.
Yeah, Sam Heughan, and the men in kilts kind of thing. That kind of journey. That could work.
He's just a handsome actor, though. You don't want to see them spoil themselves. Mark and I can't claim any of that. We're not going to be any worse looking at the end of it than what we started, so we're fine with that. Not sure we do it in kilt either. There's something about an Englishman in a kilt that just doesn't sit well. Mark could do it in a kilt. I'll do it in tweed, or I'll do it in a pinstripe suit. That'd be even funnier.
Not a Morris Dancer kind of outfit. That would be.
No, I still refute that's English. I think that's crept over some border somewhere. I don't think that's English.
Oh, I really want to tag along and transcribe. Like, please let me go along on this.
Someone's gonna post one.
David, it's been so much fun tonight. And I don't want to milk it and take up too much of your time. We really appreciate you giving up your evening for us tonight and talking to the guys at home. It's been absolutely banging. So much fun, as always, chatting to you. And the first time I've talked to you virtually, I think I mentioned that in the introduction. It's crazy to think that in this day and age, everyone meets online. We've met twice in person before we met online, which is quite cool.
Just 2 of those on dating sites, which is quite good.
But yeah. That blind dates was interesting.
When I see likes whiskey, I've got to swipe the other way, haven't I?
Do you know who I am?
Yeah, that's right.
But it's been absolutely banging, and I realised tonight it's full of whiskey stuff everywhere. Liquid Antiquarian, Aquavite has just kicked off. We've got yourself, which we're absolutely grateful that you come along, and good luck with the festival that will be there with bells on, and hopefully.
Look forward to seeing you, Louise. Look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, Mike, I need a holiday on March 21st next year.
I'll send Kat a link to buy a ticket.
Yeah. Oh, please do. That would be so fun. Well, I hope she wins an award tonight. I hope they do well. We love playing you.
To miss it for nothing would be annoying, but
yeah, she'll be kicking herself if they don't get anything.
Aye.
So good night, everyone at home. Once again, we appreciate you sticking around for 2 hours listening to us, 2.5 hours listening to this talk whiskey. Hopefully you've learned something. You've got a little bit of buzz about you off the back of the Blether, and we really look forward to seeing you next week. Without further ado, just say, Slange, thank you for joining us. Louise, thank you for filling in for Kat, who is becoming a bit of a lost celebrity at the moment. She, it's like, who is she again?
Love that though. Elusive. Like, what a woman. I love that for her.
Oh, you think it's a good thing?
She now gets to just be like the elusive Distillery Cat, and I get to be Louise the stand-in, which is just that's good for me. So
keep people guessing. David, just before we go, in 30 seconds, what's next for David Stirk? What have you got lined up?
That is a very good question. At the moment, nothing. I have nothing on the agenda whatsoever other than planning the next festival. We'll see what happens. You know me, I don't tend to stay down too long, so
absolutely.
I'm sure something will come up. But at the moment, I'm footloose. I'm enjoying my golf.
Getting a handicap down.
Even if today was brutal, I'm enjoying my golf.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And
thank you.
Guys at home, we will see you sometime very, very soon. Good night.